It's only been 6 weeks, but it feels like ages. I'm a wee bit rusty. I'm sitting here looking at all these buttons and trying to round myself how to do these types of things. But there's 224 of you in already, and the doors have only just been opened. There must be something happening tonight. I'm looking forward to getting back in touch with you all again. I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the vPub. Like I said at the intro there, it's only been 6 weeks, but it does feel like a wee while. Maybe 6 weeks is a bit too long. I'm not sure. I've had a great summer, though. It was really worthwhile. I had a chance to relax. I had a chance to slow down, reflect, and think. And I did move away from whiskey. I wasn't drinking a lot of whiskey over summer, and I think that's normal for a lot of people. But I'm excited to be back here chatting to you once more on our wee special ring-fenced couple hours that we have every Thursday night on the vPub. Tonight's going to be an interesting one. We started this last year. We had Ralfy on, and of course, Ralfy and I, you didn't know last year that we were going to announce the Online Scotch Whisky Awards last year. That was the reason that he joined me for the first vPub back after the summer. And of course, we're doing the same this year. We're going to build up to the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. We're going to fill you in with everything that we're kind of refining this year. It's going to look exactly the same. You're going to feel like it's exactly the same, but there's a few little tweaks here. And most of those tweaks, honestly, are based on what worked and what didn't work, but based on feedback from you guys as well. But before that, Ralfy and I are going to talk about a couple of topics that you might be interested in sharing, and that's whiskey pricing. We'll touch on that lightly, but we're also going to touch upon the concept of non-age statement whiskies. Those of you that watch Ralfy, you might realize or you might understand that you don't get to hear a lot about non-age statement whiskies from Ralfy. So I'm always curious, what is he sipping non-age statement wise? What is he enjoying? What would he recommend and things like that? So we'll talk about non-age statement whiskies when we have them on a wee bit later. But first, before we get into all of that and before we get into a wee bit of housekeeping I'd like to do, I'm going to jump into the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. How I have missed you all. Look at you all, 344 of you in, and the thing is lit up orange. I can see so many Aqvavitae mentions. Please do that if you're trying to get my attention tonight, and I will try and catch as many comments as I can. When there's so many people in, it's a wee bit tricky. Tom Elmer is in saying, we now return to your regularly scheduled broadcast. All is right with the world. Tom, thank you so much, my friend. Nice to see you. And I wonder if there's any chance I'm going to see you in Texas in a couple of weeks' time for the Bastards Ball in Austin. I'm going to be there for that. So if you're there, Tom, that would be amazing. Everwind is here. Ahoy, malt mates. Everwind, it's wonderful to welcome you in, my friend. I hope you're doing very, very well. Hellswood is here. Of course you are, Helen. Hope you and Andy are doing fine. Evening, Roy. Good to have your vPub open again. Evening, Ralfy. Evening, Helen. Wonderful to have you both here. Petehead is saying, evening, Roy. Good to have you back. It's good to have you here, Petehead. I noticed a wee sparrow told me you were down in Bristol recently. I hope you had a good time over there, Frank. James McGoran is here. Good to see you, James. Hope you had a wonderful summer break. I did, James, and it's great to see you back here. Gerben Blocker, my friend from Netherlands, who's actually in Scotland right now. Good evening, Roy, from Glasgow City Centre. There you go, Gerben. I hope that my fellow Glaswegians are looking after you well, my friend. And I hope you're enjoying your time in Scotland. I wonder if there's going to be any opportunity for us to shake hands and raise a dram. Whiskey Straight Al is here. Roy, you look relaxed and radiant. Good to see you. Well, thank you, buddy. Thank you very much. I have been a wee bit too relaxed, if I'm honest. Cool Running is saying, good to see you, buddy. Cheers. Good to see you, and it's nice to welcome you. First Phil Whiskey is here too. Phil, wonderful to see you, my friend. I hope you're having a good morning down there in New Zealand. What cracking, fantastic content Phil is putting out, and he's getting the deserved numbers and recognition now. It's fantastic to see the effort that he puts into his productions is different level. Oh my goodness, there's lots of drams coming in already. I need to catch these. I don't want to miss anybody. That's Alistair Gray celebrating being a member with his pink barfly for 31 months. The vPub is back with Roy and Ralfy. Thanks very much, Alistair, and thanks for your support. Alistair and all the barflies in here, press that join button underneath. If you're watching on desktop, you'll see a join button underneath. And that join button, you pay $1.99 a month in whatever currency you're in, dollars, euros, pounds, whatever it may be. And then the vPub is never monetized. So there's never ads to sit through. And you get little colorful emojis and things that you can color the chat up with, whiskey themed emojis. That's how people are able to put in Ralfy's little emoji tonight. John Delcuisine is celebrating too. vPub is back, woot woot. And Graham Brown is also celebrating being a Barfly member. Cheers to both of you, John Delcuisine, and of course Graham Brown. Fantastic, Graham. Jimmy Likes bought me a dram. He said, welcome back, you handsome devil. Hi, Jimmy. Please keep coming back. Thank you very much for your virtual dram. And Whiskey Novice Jim. Slancha buddy, great to see you back. I'm glad you and the family have had a great break. We have, Jim. So to Jim, Whiskey Novice, and to Jim, Jimmy Leg. Slancha, thank you both for your drams. I've also got one here from Craig McCarthy. Fantastic, Craig. Thank you so much. Hi, Roy from Craig, Michael and Jack. It's our last night on Island. We've managed 8 distillery tours in 4 days. Doing well, guys. That's pretty good going. We've loved this magical place. You shared a couple of pictures over Instagram, I think, Craig, and I can see that the 2 of you, or the 3 of you, sorry, are having a great time. Thanks, and thanks for joining the vPub tonight. Matthew Edgeworth is in, celebrating being a member for 11 months, saying, God help you keeping up with the chat. Cheers, Roy. I'll do my best, Matthew. Thanks very much. It's gone by a wee bit fast. Barry Cullen is also celebrating being a member, saying, evening, Roy, welcome back. Great to see you. Great to see you, Barry. And Tobias Loch is saying, greetings from Germany. Just planned my next visit to Scotland in October. Good for you, Tobias. I hope you have a fantastic time. When you do come over. There's quite a few people coming over in October as well. And Whiskey Straight Al is also celebrating being a barfly. Talking about the amount of people that's in, we're over 400 already. And, you know, the vPub's been going for 5 years now. The channel's been going for over 5 years. And it's great to build up that kind of critical mass and look forward to this kind of buzz and this excitement and this kind of community connection every week. But there's tons of people out there on YouTube grinding away, doing what I did years ago and building it up and building it up. But it's harder these days. It's much harder these days because there's hundreds of YouTube channels. I don't know, it could be, I stopped counting when I used to keep track of these things because I liked to keep it connected. I liked to talk to all the channels and I liked them to work together and collaborate and things. But I stopped counting when it got too close to 200 channels. It was just far, far too difficult to keep up. But that doesn't mean that we should not still be celebrating all these fantastic channels that are out there that are bringing great content, that are making YouTube a more and more appealing space to consume whiskey content and relax of an evening or a morning or whenever it is you may be watching. There's one I want to put in here. It was brought to me the attention of this channel. I didn't know this channel, but Joe Devine sent me a wee link and said, hey, have a look at this channel. And I ended up watching quite a few of his videos. And then I was struck to find out, and this is incredible, this channel's been going for 3 years. He's doing Scotch whiskey, he's doing American whiskey, he's doing other spirits, including tequila and mezcal and more. And he's been going for 3 years. 3 years. Dedicated grinding, putting out content. And I'm going to drop the link in the chat because this guy has still to break 1,000 subscribers. 956 subs he's on. It would be fantastic if you dropped in, watched a couple of these videos, like a couple, leave a comment, an encouraging comment, a nice warm barfly comment, and encourage him to keep going. His name is Bo Jackson, and the channel is called Drams on Deck. I've just dropped a link in. I don't mind if you excuse yourself for a second to hit subscribe or whatever and help him go over 1,000. Why is that important? Because he can monetize, and it unlocks, or at least it did when I broke 1,000. I hope it's still the same if I'm speaking like this. But you unlock tools inside YouTube that helps you do more. And that's 3 years that Bo has been working away to try and crack that 1,000 subs, right? It must have been difficult for him, but he's clearly having fun doing it, and he's still doing it today. And I think if we could get him over 1,000, that would make a huge difference to his week. Then let's go to the other end of the scale. What about somebody who's bringing out great content straight out the traps, got a nice way about them, just nice and slow-paced, professional content, nice insight, and just bringing real enthusiasm? Putting out, how many subscribers would you think you would gather after putting out a couple of dozen really good, solid whiskey review videos? He's running at about 1 to 1.5 to maximum 2 subscribers per video right now. His channel's only got 26 subs. And I just happened upon this guy, and I watched the stuff, and this guy this is the type of content that we need to encourage. This channel is called McIntyre's Malts. And I can tell you that Wade McIntyre is pretty new to the scene. But I think that, especially if you're looking for a sip-along channel, or if you're fairly new in your journey, because the products that he's covering to date so far tend to be more core range, more available whiskies. But I think that's going to become more and more important as time goes on. So I would like everybody to give Wade McIntyre, from his accent, he's New Zealand or Australia. I'm not very good at telling the difference, but I've binged most of his content, and it was very, very easy and enjoyable to watch. And again, I hope you could give Wade a nice wee warm barfly bit of encouragement, and tell him that he's on the right track and he's doing the right thing. It's good to share the love, isn't it? The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mention the Liquid Antiquarian. Arthur Motley and Dave Broom present Liquid Antiquarian. There's only occasional productions that come out through that channel, but they're always very, very worth it when they do. But on the 30th of August, coming up, I think I've got the link here. This is one to be bookmarked. They're going to be talking about the distilleries of Great Britain and Ireland. The brand new book that just came out a couple of days ago on the 23rd. I've seen this book. I've spent times leafing through the pages. It is so addictive. It's like falling into a black hole of whiskey history, and then somebody switching on all the lights. The images in that book, the information, the way that the language in that book, when they don't talk about single malts, they talk about self malts. And every single distillery seems to have an image of their malting floor. Barley's everywhere. It's back in the days that there were no centralized drum maltings and things. It is so fascinating. It's an expensive book. There's only 1,000 copies being printed. I don't know if they'll do a reprint, but they're going to be sharing that book, Dave Broom and Arthur Motley. And I would like everybody who's interested in that kind of really geeky end of whiskey history to have a wee look at that presentation that's coming up. I think you will enjoy it. My chat froze, but I think I managed to get that. Yes, it looks like that's in. So there you have it. You've got Wade McIntyre on 26 subs. Really could do with a bit of encouragement for the fantastic effort he's put into. And we've also got Bo over at Drams on Deck. And if those guys can just get a wee bit of encouragement, you never know, you might enjoy their content too. Before I reach over to the man in the Irish Sea, let's just mention a couple of announcements and things that's happening for me this year. The first thing I want to do, actually, is thank everybody for this. The day after the last vPub, before the summer break, this whiskey was launched. It's just pure timing. That's the way it happened. I didn't control that. That's when it was made available. That's when it came into stock at Royal Mile Whiskies. Bit frustrating for me that I went off on holiday and I spent 3 weeks not being able to get my hand on this stuff. And all of you guys, obviously it was released to patrons first. It's just the way that it works, and it worked very, very well. I went through the tiers on Patreon, then it ended up in the Aqvavitae Barflies page, and then went out to wider public release. But the day that it went on public release, the last few bottles were snapped up, and it was very, very quickly sold out. But this was the first ever channel bottling. This was a cask that I sourced from Loch Lomond. You can see it's badged up with the Aqvavitae logo there, but also fantastically the little Barflies logo as well. And on the back, what a gorgeous touch this is. This is Shayla from Whiskey Central, did the artwork for the back with a painting, a tin painting of Ben Lomond. Fantastic, Sheila. Thank you so much. But thanks to everybody for helping me make this happen. Of course, Michael Henry at Loch Lomond Group themselves, and all the support I got from Royal Mile Whiskies. Just fantastic. But thank you for not showing entitlement, for not being in a huff when you couldn't get it delivered to wherever you were, or when you missed it and it was sold out. For showing a bit of pragmatism and just good, honest human decency. Thank you all. I think everybody that's managed to get a wee bottle of this, if they hear of another Barfly or somebody else that wasn't able to get their hands on it, consider if you're in the best position, wherever you are in the world, to pour off a wee sample, just a wee dram, and send it off so that everybody can get a chance to taste this. It's fantastic whiskey, Chardonnay yeast, full of bright fruit, fresh fruit, lovely confectionery notes, a gorgeous, almost Prosecco-like sherbet effervescence. Just really terrific whiskey. The feedback I've had from everybody about it's been wonderful as well. Thank you all. Such a relief that that went well. Cracked that tonight, Roy, says Danny, on my third, and it's a stoter. A stoter, it's a good way to refer to it. Sabrina Benoit, Sabrina, I just missed you in Glasgow. So close. Had a dram of it in Glasgow. Really great. Fantastic, Sabrina. Where are you now? Are you on your way back to the continent? Max Kreitner is saying McIntyre is already on 114 or so. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Max. And Phobos, Sur, oh my goodness, that's one of the hardest I've ever had to pronounce, my friend. Foivos, let's go with that. Besides McIntyre Whiskies, who did they say was the second channel? The other channel to support was Drams on Deck. Let's just drop in the links once more. Let's do it now. Drams on Deck, that's Bo. And then we've got McIntyre's Malts. That's Wade McIntyre. There we go. Perfect stuff. And the Liquid Antiquarian is the channel that's putting out the content to celebrate that book. Dave Broom and Arthur Motley, and they're going live on August 30th. I'll drop in that one as well. And I'll maybe see you there. If I've got a chance to see that, I will be watching along. Good stuff. I hope you've got all of that. Thanks so much for being so enthusiastic and supporting. And Jimmy's saying, remember the people here are a reflection of you. You're a sweetheart, Jimmy. Thank you so much. If I take it in the spirit that I hope you intended it, of course. And Jeff Whiskey's saying, top my glass and sadly crossing the halfway line. Aye. Unfortunately, that Loch Lomond is a bit of a disappearing whiskey. Rob Halford is saying, has Ralfy tried your Loch Lomond? No, not yet, but that's a good idea, Rob. But Ralfy, it's hard to get stuff to Ralfy, isn't it? Sabrina is saying, just came back a few hours ago. Till next time. Sabrina, or maybe I'll have to come over and see you. Maybe I'll have to be closer to your home. Maybe that's the way it's going to have to work. And Jesse is saying, have you tried Tiran Peli whiskey from Finland? I have tried it. I've only tried a couple here and there. I don't own a bottle of it. But I have had a couple of samples, and there's so many fantastic whiskies popping up from absolutely everywhere. We're all having the problem of keeping up, right? Reb is in. Good to see you, Reb. Reb Mordecai saying, good evening. What about the Spirit Safe whiskey review site? Only 860 subs. And he is simply brilliant. Best whiskey tasting notes on YouTube, Reb. If you want to drop, I didn't even know that Spirit Safe was still going. I think he's an English guy in Canada or something, right? If you want to drop in that link, I'll make sure the moderators clear it. And we can share a bit of love over with the Spirit Safe as well. Absolutely. Jerry Miller is saying, I hope there's still some of that Loch Lomond left at the Bonaccord or the Pot Still when I get over there. The Pot Still had a bottle, Bonaccord had a bottle, Ensign Ewart in Edinburgh had a bottle, but I got word back from the Ensign Ewart just this week. There's only a couple of drams left there. So it might be that it's not going to last very long. I hope it's something that I can do again in the future, but it's not going to be a regular thing. It's just going to be when the moment and serendipity, when an opportunity comes along that's really as good as this. And Matthew is saying, love the sound of the Aqvavitae Loch Lomond, but didn't manage to grab a bottle. Matthew, share where you are, and one of us may be able to help you, buddy. Pedro Menezes is saying, have you had any Brazilian whiskey yet? Pedro, I have to say, I don't think I have. Christopher Malloy has just dropped in a link. I think that might be the link to the Spirit Safe's channel. Christopher, thank you very, very much. Good stuff. For the rest of the year, let's get on and get Ralfy in. Come on, he's sitting there in the bothy waiting for me. For the rest of the year, there's lots and lots of things happening. There's too many things happening. Tonight, we're going to focus on the OSWAs. That's what it's about. But a couple of kind of save the dates, mark your diary, or whatever it may be. I'm going to Texas. I'm going to the Bastards Ball on the 10th of September. If you're going to be there, that would be amazing to see you there. It's been 3 years since I've been able to go over. I booked everything last year, but the borders remained closed. But this year, I'm ready. No more flat Roy, no more cardboard cutout of me having to be in Texas. I will actually be there. So that's September 10th. There will be a vPub that goes out a couple of days before at the regular time slot. And yeah, we're just sorting everything out for that just now. A wee bit of a surprise there. I'm looking forward to that vPub. Then Glasgow Whisky Festival is. I know that you're thinking, wait a minute, it's already been this year, but it was delayed. It was pushed out because of all the events that were in Glasgow the year before, so it was pushed into February this year. 2021's was earlier than 2022. But the 2022 Glasgow Whisky Festival is happening on the 12th of November. Most of our community are going to the first session, which is normal. But if you are in Glasgow for that event, for that weekend, you might want to stay around for the Sunday. I am putting together an event for the Sunday. It's going to be for about 40 plus people. I hope I can squeeze it to get maybe closer to 50 people. So we can all get together and have a bit of an event in a nice space in the middle of Glasgow somewhere. Just a barflies gathering. Stay in touch, of course. The information is going to come from Patreon first, so keep your eye on there. From there on in, it'll roll on into, if there's any space left, it'll roll on into the Aqvavitae Barflies page on Facebook, and I'll make a general announcement about it on the vPub too. So that's where we are for 2022 so far. I've never looked forward to 6 months so much, but I've never had so much kind of minor intimidation because there's just so much stacked ahead. But I'm up for it. We're all up for it. This is a good time, despite all of the dynamics that we're faced with right now, with rising costs and prices, confusion and crazy stuff happening all over the place. There's never been a better time to just get together like this and enjoy some really quite decent whiskies. McCallum Fine and Rare Doc is in. Good to see you, Doc. Good to welcome you in again. And damn it, Danny Hebbington is saying, bring on the man, the legend. I think that's a good shout, Danny. Fantastic. James Julio, I managed to meet him this summer as well, just off the golf course. Glad you're back. I hope you enjoyed your round of golf. Cheers, James. Good to welcome you in. And the Hogsheads are saying, can barflies bring non-barfly whiskey plus ones to that potential meetup? Aye, as long as they're good, trustworthy barfly type folk, I don't see why not. Absolutely. Keep in touch, and we'll more to follow on those things in the future. Let's go over to the man in the Irish Sea and say thank you for your patience. Let's bring him on and see what he's got to say about our topics for tonight. Ralfy, in you come, my friend, in you come. How are you doing?
Oh, hello, all you barflies and maltsters, malt mates, and whiskey aficionados, right?
Aye. Whiskey folk, good old whiskey folk. Listen, apologies for leaving you sitting there for 20 minutes, but it's been 6 weeks. There was a lot to catch up with, a lot to get out.
Absolutely,
so
no worries.
I hope that's okay for the rest of the night.
Yeah,
it's just you and I, and well, I don't know how many other folk are in, but the last time I looked, there was nearly 400. There's nearly 500 of us in, so a wee quiet night at the vPub. You're looking well. Are you feeling well?
I'm feeling wonderful. I've had a long, hot summer, Roy. And funnily enough, although I'm still tasting whiskey, because I've got reviews coming up, so I need to taste what I'm about to review once or twice a week, but it's remarkably small portions. And I find myself going 3 or 4 days where I'm not actually consuming any alcohol at all. And I find that a lot easier and more natural during the summer when it's warmer weather. Whereas during the winter, I find it a lot easier to drink wee drams more frequently. I think there's some historical, cultural aspect to that. But I totally agree with you that for all of us who are involved with whiskey, as important as savouring and sampling is actually taking time out, because it's not just giving our livers a rest, Roy. It helps to let our palates rest. And going for a few days, even 3 or 4 weeks in a row, it just lets the palate slightly recalibrate, because there's no doubt about it. We can start to, over time, because we're so familiar with whiskey and varieties of whiskey, we start to institutionalize our palate. And there's nothing more useful than just wandering off whiskey. In fact, just wandering off alcohol. So we're not replacing it with rum or gin and tonics or bourbons or rye or whatever. Just having a dry spell.
A break, yep.
Absolutely.
And I think that we're similar. I think because there's more daylight, we're maybe out and we're a bit busier for longer and things. It's a wee bit easier in the summer. And I fully agree with you that there is a cultural thing there. I don't think that there's any coincidence that, you know, the countries that tend to spend a lot of time in darkness throughout the winter and things, and even when the summer's there, the weather's not guaranteed for us in the British Isles, right? There's a lot of kind of sheltering indoors going on. And when you're stuck indoors, and especially for hundreds of years, this has been happening, there tends to be a lot of, well, what else are we going to do? We're going to raise a glass. But that doesn't mean that you need to take it too far. It's always nice to be a wee bit responsible about these things. I'm going to try not to get preachy, but I did find it easy over summer to back off a wee bit. And I know a lot of folk out there, for various different reasons and dynamics in their life, might not. The dram in my glass right now, I'm having a wee sample, actually. It's a Craig Ellichy, 13-year-old, but this is the Bass Armagnac finish. A sample I got from Graham Skinner. And it's very nice. It is too. I'm just on the last wee bit I poured in there. But you and I are actually going to move on quite quickly. And I know, I'll apologise again. I know I do this to you. I think I've done it to you before. Probably. Is it fair for me to say, Ralfy, give us your opinion on non-age statements? Because I remember it being quite profound when you got a bit fed up when bottles were dropping age statements and coming out in very similar presentation, suddenly without an age statement for a similar price, and clearly not the same experience. There was a number of examples that you've used over the years that happened with. And you took quite a step to say, if it's nonsense, I'm just not going to review it. And if it's a non-age statement, I'm not going to review it. So a couple of times you've been on the vPub with me, I feel like, and it's not intended to bully you in any way, it's just, I've always been curious. I want to hear Ralfy's opinion on this, but I know he's not going to review it because it's a non-age statement. I asked you to do something specifically tonight. I asked you to pick out a couple of Ralfy favourite non-age statements. And I've done the same. You and I do not know what we've got, but I predict there might be some overlap. I'm going to guess there could be some overlap if we've picked predictable ones. What did you pick? And as you share it with us, tell us why you took that stance on non-age statement.
Okay. Bottle number 1, Aaron Quarter Cask.
Oh, I was ready. I thought, no. I've got Aaron Quarter Cask. I do have it. I do have it.
Excuse me, vPub, Cheermeister. Were you ready or were you no ready?
I wasn't ready for that one. I wasn't ready for that one. And I'll say that I've got a lightly peated, I've got a peated, and I've got an unpeated non-age statement. But there was one I was expecting you to pull out there first. And it might be that you don't bring it out at all. But that tells me, and I know that in the extras, you've done a non-age statement when you reviewed the Victoriana. Let's say you gave it a soft review. You know, I know that you do sip non-age statement whiskies, and if you have in that Aaron Quarter Cask on hand, surely that's rife for a Ralfy review, no?
It is, actually. But the landscape has changed significantly in the last couple of years.
Okay.
It's about 2 years ago that I noticed the proliferation, the increase in numbers of non-age statement bottlings coming from existing distilleries and new distilleries who were, in my opinion, rushing out their product and withholding disclosure of explanation as to, well, what am I tasting? You know, it's a legal requirement that you put the alcoholic strength on, and it's a legal requirement that you put the capacity of the bottle on. But that's where it starts to end. Everybody wants to put the identity of some source on the bottle, whether it be a blend or a single malt, to give it identity. But then after that, you can go 2 directions. The first direction is withholding information and leaning in marketing and providing this flannelly information, which there's no harm in it if it's done in moderation and done in, excuse the pun, in good taste. So if you say, you know, here's the location of a distillery and, you know, it's an old distillery, not a new distillery, and that sort of self-evident practical information that helps you sort of start to get your palate round and explains what's in the bottle. But
I think it also enriches the experience. And I don't think you need to be a whiskey geek to get a richer experience out of a bottle that displays what I think you're talking about is just transparency.
Yeah, but there's the lack of transparency with non-age statement whiskies means that you can bottle a batch of whiskey where 80% of it is 6 years old and 20% of it is 15 years old, and then you can price it as a 12-year-old whiskey. Now, I'm generalizing here, but you see where they have an excuse, the distillers, to bottle younger whiskey, charge a higher price with the expectation that you're going to say, well, it must be worth what I've paid for it because it tastes that way. But we've got to separate the responsible non-age statement bottlers like Compass Box, for example, or like Isle of Arran, or like some versions of, say, for example, Lefroy, where our Victoriana is a great example. It's a splendid whiskey for the price.
That's what I've actually poured, just to mention. I'll just get my first nomination out the way. I actually thought that you would pick the Victoriana. That's why I was ready to reach for it. I thought we were going to play a wee game of Snap, but no, that's what I've poured in, and I think it is. And by the way, we just mentioned, if anybody's interested, if you're ever wanting to know, you just ask, and the Loch Lomond and Michael Henry specifically is very good at telling everybody what goes into Victoriana, and it is quite considerable. I need to commit it to memory so I can just rhyme it off one day. Sorry to interrupt, Ralfy, on you go.
Not at all. By the way, Victoriana is the first batch is basically gone now, more or less.
Yes.
And I think there's a pattern with whiskey where the first batch is the ambassador batch. The first batch sets the reputation when people find it. And then the subsequent batches they're competent, they're good, but not quite as good. So that maybe that will be the case or it won't be the case. But I noticed that there's no point in lumping all non-age statement whiskies in as not worthy of review. Some are. And I'm mindful that here in 2022, I had a run of official bottling reviews and issued the worst marks in 13 years for the quality of some of them, whether they were overly oaky or whether they were just nasty hot spirit, and absolutely nowhere near worth the price that the distillers were asking. And price is a sensitive thing because whatever the cost of a whiskey, the producers need to be aware that the customer must experience relative value for money, or else they start to lose them. So I do buy non-age statement whiskies. When they're really good, I can put them in as an extras and give it a soft review. But in fact, I think the bigger issue now is the increasing habit of significant chill filtration in whiskies. And basically, I've mentioned it to my Patreon supporters now, but I'll mention it in your channel. I will start re-reviewing non-age statement whiskies in 2023, but I'll stick to the good ones because the way things are going, it's going to be a heavy year for many, many people around the world who are into whiskey. And I've got to be really conscious in my reviews of people's budgets and what the money they've got in their purse, what they can afford.
I think that's going to be a running theme throughout tonight. There's no doubt, Ralfy, no doubt. Christopher Malloy bought us a wee dram to say what's in the glass. Non-age statement, Compass Box Artists Blend. Perfect blended Scotch whisky there. Christopher, I'm glad you're enjoying it. And Tom R is celebrating being a member for 28 months. Thank you, Tom. And he's saying, I'm enjoying an alternative tonight. Love my rums. A lot of that happening as well, Tom. Ralfy, what's your thoughts on I appreciate now, after your announcement there, you mentioned 2023, so it's going to be next year you start to lift the veil on non-age statements again?
It is. Right.
And
I'm really focusing on my mission next year, because we've got to kind of every year at the end of the year when Christmas arrives and then it's that gap between New Year and we have a wee break, I've got to say, right, I'm continuing to do what I do in the form of reviews, but I've got to kind of freshen it up slightly. So I'll do a kind of checklist and themes of what I'm going to be reviewing for the following year. And I've got a few plans, by the way. It's not going to be about Scotch whisky. We're going to be doing a bit of globe trotting. So there's another wee clue as to Ralfy.com content next year. And I'm really kind of going to basically sniff out, no pun intended, better value whiskies for the money, and hopefully this habit across the retail spectrum of just bumping up the prices as soon as Ralfy dishes out 90 out of 100 will kind of simmer down a little bit. Otherwise, I'm just going to have a top mark of 89 because it's getting more and more apparent from the feedback I get from Patreon subscribers and malt mates on the channel that this is the internet, you see, Roy. The internet doesn't just change things. It doesn't allow the opportunity to change things. It allows the opportunity to change things dramatically. And one of the big benefits of what you do and I do and the other content makers right across the internet are doing is we're coming in from a different angle. We're not experts. We are not established industry figures who are writing books and doing a tremendous job of presenting the whiskey industry to the world. And absolutely, they're fantastic in what they achieve. But the internet allows a different perspective. It allows your ordinary punters like ourselves, enthusiasts, who have got a little bit of experience behind us and happen to have a ringside seat to all things Scotch because of where we live. And we know the people that work in the industry. We know many of them. We socialize with some of them. And then they tell us a little bit about what's going on. And then we have a conversation with someone else and we get a fuller picture from what they have to say.
I would go one further than that, Ralfy. I would say you've been doing this for 13 years now. And you've always taken the position, you've always stood with the enthusiast. And I actually think that that's true of the vast majority of the content creators on YouTube and most of the content that I enjoy outside of YouTube too. They don't stand there and declare themselves to be an expert. That just doesn't happen. I know that people sometimes say whiskey experts and this nonsense, but I never see it said. However, what I will say is in that 13 years that you've been going, would you imagine that the community of enthusiasts that we speak to, that we speak with, that we hang out with, they've grown with us at the same rate that we have. The knowledge of our community is huge. I mean, it's incredible. It's when I get something wrong, when I make a mistake, when I'm not sure of something, I only wait like a few seconds and somebody pops it into the chat.
Mm-hmm.
The knowledge pool that's out there in our community is staggering at times. And that's grown surely over the last 12 to 13, 15 years because of maybe 20 years if you consider Whiskey Fun, Malt Maniacs and everything that came out 20 years ago now. They're celebrating 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, that's a huge growth in knowledge in a very short space of time because of the democratization of information through online.
Yeah, with the original sites like Malt Maniacs and whiskeyfun.com. I mean, Whiskey Fun and what Serge continues to achieve, and with his, quite simply, the single most detailed reference library in history relating to alcoholic beverage.
Certainly from one person. Absolutely. Well, a couple of people, a few people now. Yep. Absolutely. And then there's obviously we've got reference pools like a Whiskey Base and things that are huge, and there's various other platforms like that are community sourced. But I think you're right about Serge, and I think you're right. It's crazy that he's still building that. Obviously, he's got Angus on board now as well. Yeah. It's crazy that it's still being built 20 years later, and we've got access to that. That is what is bringing the knowledge to the community, because there's only so many books that you can buy. There's only so much reading that you can do. When there's real-time live commentary happening, that's what the online side of things gives you. It's so much more relevant, I think, and obviously alongside the reference books and everything. So let me ask you then. You've been sipping that Arran. I think when I bought that Arran, it was about £45 from memory.
Uh-huh.
It was not inexpensive, that quarter cask. Will you be reviewing that one?
Possibly. And the clue is in the fact that this is a non-age statement, but it ticks all the, apart from lacking an age statement, it ticks the boxes in terms of being a really good quality single malt. It is young. I would put it about 7 or 8 years old.
Yes. Yep.
But it's the fact that they're disclosing that it was matured in quarter casks. Quarter casks speed up the pace of maturation, but they do more than that. They actually give a certain dimension to the whiskey. The interaction between previous content and wood is more rapid, and it brings a certain energy to the malt. And of course, they've bottled it at cask strength as well, at 56.2%. So I feel that focusing really on seeking out quality stuff, I can't really just cut my nose to spice my face anymore about leaving out non-age statement whiskies, although frankly, there's plenty I can leave out. It's a sign of the times. Things are changing dramatically. The internet responds very swiftly. You and I are aware that there's a global recession blowing in. People will have to be a lot more careful with their money, a lot more canny with their cash. And the result is that the way we can be useful is helping people to source reasonably priced better bottles and avoid more expensively priced inferior bottles. And I think that what we bring to the table, some people in the whiskey industry get it, and they appreciate the value of it. But I think that there are other people in the Scotch whisky industry who, frankly, are most uncomfortable with the level of knowledge, ability to smell and taste whisky, to understand a whisky. And this is starting to show at master classes where people are sitting in the audience and saying, wait a minute, this is just a little bit of ambient flannel going on here. And then someone, because always after a few drinks, someone will ask that awkward question. It's well informed, it's articulate, and it really puts presenters on the spot. And I think this is one thing that people within the industry are saying, hang about, how come these people know so damn much more than they used to?
Well, the naivety now falls on them then. And I would also say that when that question comes along, that question that shows that somebody is informed and they're passionate and they know about it, the host or the presenter, 99% of the time they're going to be able to answer that. But I think the thing that separates is when they're able to answer it with a bit of honesty and a bit of flair and a bit of not just giving a straightforward answer, but giving a given context and explaining it. There's reasons for everything to exist, right? There's reasons for it all to be there. I think what we need to encourage in these days is the fact that it's just say the words, explain the reasons for it. Don't kind of, if you don't know, you don't know, but don't dress it up as something else. There's usually reasons for everything. And the more honesty that we have, the more that unlocks understanding. Whiskey Works Graham has bought a dram to say evening Aqvavitae and Ralfy and everyone. Wee bit late, but hey ho, looking forward to the awards this year. You and I both, Graham, and thank you very much for your dram, my friend. It looks like Zach Andrews has bought maybe dram. Zach, if there's a chance that you're going to be in Texas, that would be amazing. Texas Barfly meetup, T-minus 14 days. It looks like he is going to be there. Zach Andrews, thanks very much for your dram. And Chris Malloy is saying, Glenn Murray, Nass, sherry finished is stupid good. That's a young whiskey as well that Chris is enjoying there as well. Chris has always had a steely eye for a good value whiskey too. Zach, Chris, and Graham, thanks very much for your drams. Sorry, Ralfy. What's your second non-age statement whiskey, my friend? Cheers.
Oh, now this is an interesting one because I was having a look in the stash. The purpose of anybody's stash is to buy properly good whiskies at today's prices in the knowledge that they will not last. Now, from 2010 to 2020 in particular has been a global economic bull run on the stock market and beyond. It's been an era of cheap borrowing, of rapidly increasing value of owned assets like houses, and more recently second-hand cars, second-hand any vehicles. And I think that because of that, the whiskey industry's used it as reference to jack some prices up ambitiously and aggressively and proactively. And I think that in 2023, we're going to see a little bit of that come back to bite them. But before we go,
I don't think anybody's going to be surprised to hear that Ralfy and Roy have done a wee bit of work on pricing in the background, and we've used the model of the OSWAs to kind of illustrate that to you. And if you hang on for a wee bit, we're going to do a wee bit of work and share with you where we think the pricing is comfortable and safe and acceptable, and where we think the pricing is becoming just nonsense. And we'll talk a wee bit about that. So what did you find in the stash?
Right, so I found this in the stash. I was given this. I'll hold it forward. It's a small bottle.
Yes.
And it was a gift from someone who used to work in the whiskey industry and had been out of touch with the whiskey industry, but wanted to get back in touch with it, and had gone back to his place of work, but folk were too busy to give him the time of day. So we met in a pub. And we basically had a good chat, and I said, well, this is where it's at from my perspective. He found it really useful because he was basically doing his sort of kind of tour guide thing.
Sure.
And one of the bottles he gave me as a thank you was a Blender's Reflection, it's called. Now, I'm going to hold it right forward so as you can see it.
Okay, I've not seen this at all.
Right?
Yep.
You've not seen this. Nobody's seen this. This is one of these little peculiarities from yesteryear. Now, in Allied distillers, right? So we're going back a bit here.
Yes, we are.
Master blender, Jack, his name was, Jack Gowdy, retired on the 31st of August, 1994, right? And when he did, there was a wee commemorative bottling for members of staff because he was retiring. This is an older generation master blender, and he blended it up, right? Yep. And I'm going to open it now.
Oh, superb. Superb.
Okay. It's a screw top.
Yes.
I can't help but give people advice. Malt mates, see if you've got old screw tops in your collection. Be aware that the soft alloy gets brittle over time, quite brittle. The older it is, the more brittle it gets. When every now and again you need a wee twist, always twist clockwise, because that screws it a little bit tighter as it loosens off slightly. But when you twist it anti-clockwise, you'll get a crack. Now, the older the bottle, the bigger the crack off the alloy, which is kind of dried out a wee bit. Here we go. Do you hear that?
Yep.
Check the inside of the cap. Is it discolored? Is it tasting nosing unpleasant? You know there's no contamination there, so I'm just going to pour a wee dram now.
Ethan Sterner is in, bought us a wee dram. Welcome back, Roy, and hello, Ralfy. Drinking some Hunter Lang Scarabus over here. Any idea the distillery? Quite tasty. I would reckon that if you're drinking an Isla single malt like Scarabus, I don't know if it's the 10-year-old you have, the cast strength, or the original non-age statement ether, but the chances are high that it's Caol Ila in every one. As much as we wanted to believe that somebody had happened upon a parcel of Lagavulin or whatever, remember that sometimes, depending on the bottling and the cask, Lagavulin and Caol Ila are very close, and that's quite deliberate. It's a fantastic drama. I enjoyed all of the Scarabus releases, and I hope you're enjoying it too. I would put my money on the fact that it's Caol Ila, Ethan. Thank you very much for your drama, friend. Cheers. And another wee dram's just popped in as well from Sir Glenn Mallord. Sir Glenn, thank you very much for your dram. He's saying, I'm teleporting my Glencairn to Ralfy to share. If it doesn't make it back, I'll roll on with my Deanston. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much for your dram. And thank you for trying to make your Glencairn teleport over to Ralfy. So how is it, Ralfy? Give us this is quite a thing. It's been sealed for over 20 years. Have you had it in your possession for that long? Or
I got it early 2000s. And this was bottled in 1994. It's a smaller bottle. And the thing is with smaller bottles, if there's any taint from the cardboard inside the screw top, it's going to have a greater impact due to the lesser volume of content in the bottle. But I'm noticing a very light cardboard note on the surface, but I'm also noting, once I sniff it again, it's starting to lift and dissipate. And behind it is a soft, completely unpeated, rich, slight ginger biscuit, slight, soft cinnamon, Lowland style. If I was to pick out a single malt distillery, it would actually be Bladnoch.
Right. Okay. Okay.
But it's really nicely matured. So
I was expecting a big nose full of Ardbeg in there. Ardbeg was once, and back in the 90s, would have been owned by Allied, of course, but no ancient Ardbeg hidden in there, you don't think?
Because back then in blends, peatiness, heavy peatiness, was a real risk. It's a risk that Bell's took when they had bottled their Islander version, which had Kulila in it, but it never lasted. People weren't interested. It was really
Black Bottle, when it was PTL, I know a lot of kind of whiskey folk, let's say whiskey folk, I don't know about the general whiskey buying public, but whiskey folk lament Black Bottle when it dropped off in peatiness, and it's gradually been kind of moving back in that direction. That was always the one that I associated with having a peaty lick in it.
It dropped off to the extent that basically suddenly they took the brand name of Black Bottle, removed the peat, and put in really young, unpleasant, under-matured whiskey in a different shaped bottle and just shoved it out there again. What a disaster!
Yeah.
Horrible.
I have got some Black Bottle in Spain actually, and I was getting on okay with it, but it's different in Spain because I'm using it to make long drinks. Let's be fair. Time for a dram. Gregor is in. Good to see you, Gregor. I hope you're well, buddy. I had a great time with you this summer. 562 in. The vPub's getting I want the Betty Swallocks. Peter Hunt is saying Bladnoch for me is a mega dairy note. So sometimes, Peter, it usually comes from fermentation. You can get some kind of lactic notes that come through into the distillate, and I have had that in a couple of Bladnochs in my time. I don't find it too much. I quite like it. I think it's you get that kind of thing. It can be too much sometimes, and it just comes across just overly lactic and dairy and cheesy. And he's saying the Black Bottle experimentation series they released are fantastic value and cracking taste. Superb. So there you go. That's your two. So my other, so Ralfy's second non-age statement, unfortunately for us all, is unobtainium, but it's a nice story and a nice wee bottle for him to share with us tonight. But the one I'm going to open this tonight. So I wasn't sure if we were going to end up with a duplicate, to be honest with you, Ralfy. I thought that you might be a wee bit predictable, but you're Ralfy. I should know better. I'm going to open this. I'm going to open a long roll peated tonight. This has been on the shelf for quite a long time, and I've just not got around to open it. I've not been precious about it or anything. I was just waiting on the moment, and this is as good a reason as any. And the one I had is a backup, and here's an interesting topic. As I open the long roll, can maybe talk about this because you mentioned it. Here we have there's no way that they can do anything other than make this non-age statement, Ralfy. It's decades. This is the second batch of Tomatin decades. So what they've got is they've got things from the last decade, the previous decade to that, the previous decade to that. It gets to the point that obviously it's getting really, really quite mature stock in the mix here. Less and less of it. Of course, this was £115 or something. But if you were to put an age statement on this under SWA regulations, you would end up having to slap 7 or 8 years or something on it. So clearly they're going to put it out as a non-age statement. And so you can understand why some whiskies benefit from not putting an age statement on it. And I think that with this particular release, anybody that was buying it would know what this is about and know what the makeup is.
Mm-hmm.
So, they've probably, if they're going to spend that amount of money in a bottle, they've done a wee bit of research perhaps. But would you say that there are times where non-age statement whiskies are released and there's no cynicism in there at all? It's not that they're not saying the words. It's not that they're hiding anything. It's just that it doesn't do them a service to share what it is. Or what would be your take on that kind of bottle?
My take would be that they take the risk that if like Victoriana, if people buy that bottle and associate and connect the quality of the contents with the price that they have paid, then fine, mission accomplished. But there are plenty of non-age statement whiskies out there which do not do that. Having said that, there's some age statement whiskies out there that you look at the price and then you look at the relative value, and there's such mixed messages in the industry, coming from the industry, because you've got the great value coming from, say, Springbank, if you can get a bottle, or Kilkerran, if you can get a bottle, or Arran, or Glencadam, who are presenting natural integrity whiskey at accessible prices, and they're really tapping into this growing market demand for it of informed, enlightened, practiced and experienced whiskey customers, the sort of customers that tend to help the industry weather the storm of recession a lot more successfully than the passive consumer that's just standing looking for the bling box in travel retail.
And I would go one further than that, and I would say the type of consumer that's prepared to occasionally go out of their comfort zone of the 25 to 45 pound price bracket and splash out on £100 bottle of whiskey as a special treat to keep them going over winter or whatever it may be. Folk like us and folk like a lot of people in tonight. I know that not everybody's doing that, but occasionally, and the more you get into whiskey, the more you kind of follow that journey, the more you get and take it into the weeds, the more you'll be tempted to spend more money to try and connect with some of the experiences that you're hearing from your peers and your fellow whiskey fans.
And the more you spend the money and the more bottles you buy, the sooner you get to a duff bottle of overpriced, unrewarding whiskey, disappointing whiskey.
That's when the action of one benefits the many. So it's up to you and I, Ralfy, for us to go out and buy those duffers. It's up for you and I to have made a mistake and then be able to say and explain it and for us to articulate as best we can why we feel it's a mistake, so that people can avoid these potential banana skins out there. Lee J. Brown is saying, enjoying tonight so much. Shame to leave, but up at 5 a.m. tomorrow. We'll catch the rest on replay night. Oh, Lee J, it was fantastic for you to drop in, my friend. I hope life is treating you well down there in sunny Wiltshire. Thanks for dropping by. Ralfy, I think you and I want to spend a minute tonight talking as well about price, right? We want to it's a theme on both our channels. It's becoming more of a theme as time goes on. You and I had a very candid discussion about how we can work in order to be positive, despite the things that's been thrown up at us, to focus on where the community can still find positivity and good experiences in whiskey and things like that. I think we're very much on the same page there, right? We've gone through quite an interesting exercise. Can we share these prices?
Absolutely, and just on the subject of prices, the fact that we are not experts, that we are buying a lot of bottles of whiskey, it matters as much to us as it does to any other customer, because we are in their shoes, quite literally in their shoes.
Absolutely, and we both spend our own money.
Yeah,
we're not campaigning the industry and asking for bottles to be sent. And in fact, neither of us get bottles sent.
It's not healthy.
The last time I got a bottle sent, I contacted them and I said, thank you, but don't do this ever again, because I will not review this. I can't review this. If I've paid for it with my own money, I can review it. It's just that. So they understand that now, and they understand what we're about. But it means that when we do talk about the whiskey, the money that we've handed over, that money the same as anybody else in the community has done it. And you and I obviously have the ability to do that because of our Patreon support. Let's never forget. But what we did when Ralfy and I were kind of banging our gums about price, you remember the OSWAs in 2021, when the nominations were launched, and it'll be the same this year. I'm going to spend a minute going through the structure of the OSWAs for 2022. Stay tuned for that. And if you're watching on the replay, there will be chapter markers underneath to help you skip ahead, hopefully. What we did in 2021 was we said, look, this has been nominated based on where we are in 2021, and here's your guide price in the UK. We could only use the UK because we can't go out to every state in the US, Canada. We can't go across Europe and Asia and the Southern Hemisphere. We can't go everywhere asking what the prices are, but we'll tell you what the prices are based on the UK, where Ralfy and I are coming from. and we'll tell you that that's kind of the context of the nomination. That's what we did. So all the nominations were put out there with a guide price. It was interesting to get the feedback from everybody about what you're paying for locally. Some of you were getting very favourable prices for whiskey. Northern Europe specifically was getting good prices, or Central Europe certainly. If you go up into Scandinavian things, obviously the taxation is different. It was getting expensive. But the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, Central Europe were doing very well. North America was up and down and all over the place. It was incredible, the price variance that we saw from the States. And in Canada, the problem that they suffered from was a lack of choice, a lack of variety, and that's because of the state-controlled, and most of the provinces, the state-controlled conditions that they work under. But what that meant is that Ralfy and I then had a reference point from a year ago. So we sat down and we went through all the prices for the nominations from 2021 from last year. These are not the nominations for this year. We cannot share nominations with you because they don't exist yet. But from last year, we wanted to see where the price increases came in. Let's share it, Ralfy, shall we?
Shall we? Yeah.
So here is the 2021 entry-level single malt nominations. I've put a green tick next to it if it's within £1 or £2 of the price from last year. So if we look at, we've got the Ardbeg 10 here, within £1 or £2, 45 to £46, £1 increase. Arran 10, still at the same price, despite its success in 2 categories. Bunnahabhain, it's bumped up a wee bit, 42 to 44, but still in check. Then we've got the Deanston 12-year-old. That's gone up a wee bit, but to be honest, that's the average price of that, even last year, has got so much to do with how many times you see it on offer. Still within tolerance. Glencadam 10, the same. Even Highland Park 12. There's very, very minimal creep here on price. Maybe you could argue just what's expected in terms of increase to costs, materials, inflation, and that kind of thing. In this entry-level category, as we termed it last year, there is a refinement to that for this year. We don't see much of a change. And we're quite surprised as we go through this and we go into the blended category, with the exception of Flaming Heart, which is now pretty much sold out unless you're lucky where you are. And because it's an old batch, chances are it's going to be at the same price anyway. But the rest of the blends were the same. Spice Tree, £48. £47 for the Peat Monster. That's £1 dearer than the 46 from 2021. Cutty Sark Prohibition, exact same price, £24. Scallywag, £1 more expensive. Johnny Walker Green Label, cheaper, £4 cheaper. And that's got to do with the offers and kind of just the prices there change quite regularly. But it's most websites had that in the order of £38, which is actually a wee bit cheaper than this year. Will I go on, Ralfy?
Please go on, yeah.
The grain whiskey, this is when we start to venture outside of Scotch here, because when we talk about grain, we're actually just talking about whiskies that are non-malt whiskies. Bain's South African whiskey, the same price. Texas Balcones whiskey, the Balcones True Blue whiskey, it's generally not available. It's hard to get your hands on, so that's tricky. Then we've got Compass Box, that's the Hedonism, more or less the same price. Teeling single grain, maybe £1 or £2 more expensive, nothing in it. And the exact same price when Wild Turkey 101 came back and the Rare Breed came back at the exact same price too. Nothing has increased in a year. Things do start to change. When we go up the price banding a little bit, that's when we start to see things smart a little. Let's take away the Cotswolds. That's more or less the same right now. They've managed to do a good thing for another year. Retail is 41. We regularly see it on offer for less than that. Texas single malt whiskey, more or less the same price from Balcones. But look at the Indian whiskey. That's jumped up a wee bit there. That's gone from being 50, 52, 53 pounds to 59. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof has gone up 10, 5, 15 pounds maximum. It's bumped up a wee bit. That's reflective of the strain on supply in the States, no doubt. Where the big increase has been seen is in these Irish single pot still Irish whiskies, the more premium ones, Redbreast 15 and the Redbreast 21. 10% increase, more or less, on both. That's a wee bit pricey, and here's when it really starts to hurt. Now, there's a lot of premium whiskies here, no doubt, but look, the best single malt Scotch whisky, R10, was put forward there. You can see it's locked at the same price, as is Glenallachie's 10-year-old cask strength. Maybe depending on who your vendor is, who your retailer is, you've maybe seen a 5 or more on your Glenallachie. It could be a wee bit more expensive, but generally speaking, you can still pick it up at the same price as last year. Victoriana, there's a little hazard symbol next to that £65. If you can buy it at £65, I would suggest, if you love that whiskey, grab it, because it's not going to stay £65. We know there's a bump coming in Victoriana's prices, and in a lot of retailers, we've seen it already. Lefroy cask strength, there's a bump there. Only £5 or £7 thereabouts, but it's there. Longrow, 18-year-old, now £110. We've seen a 10% bump there. Ralfy, I'm going to hand over the next one to you. Talisker 18, I don't even know where to start.
No. You deal with it yourself. You're in the vPub. You're behind the bar. You break the bad news to all the malt mates.
Right, okay, let's talk about it. Let's just do it. You can see I've put the price there. It's got the biggest hazard warning thing next to it. It's £175. Listen, well, let me just say, heads off to, we had retailers, supporting retailers come on board, and they promised that despite whatever we nominated for the OSWAs in 2021, they wouldn't increase the pricing until the end of the year. They would freeze the pricing in order to reassure the community that that was not what that was about, that they were just going to support the initiative. Royal Mile Whiskies were one of the people to do that, and they went one further. On Talisker 18, they dropped the price from £82 to £78, more or less. They had it on sale after the OSWAs were launched. And even although that Talisker 18 was a nomination, that stayed at that £78 right until they ran out of stock. And in fact, if you click on Royal Mile Whiskies Talisker 18 now, you'll see that the price is still sub £80.
Yeah.
But when they get in their new stock, they're not going to be able to do that anymore, of course. With the stock that we do see, the new stock online with the new labelling is £175. We are not talking about a sudden increase in price because of materials, logistics, energy, glass, none of this. We're not talking about a bump in price here because there's suddenly not much stock and it's become really quite rare. Absolutely not. More likely they would discontinue if that was the case for a little while to let stocks catch up. What we're talking about here is luxury product placement. The fact that they can generate more kudos, more demand for a product by making it seem less attainable. That's what's happening here. Fashion, luxury goods placement, taking a product that has been built by people who loved the product, people who were whiskey geeks, people who were passionate whiskey fans, whiskey drinkers who loved Talisker 18. It was their treat whiskey. It's been taken right out of their hands, and they can no longer buy it by one of the most hilarious companies when it comes to pricing. With Diageo, sometimes if you look at Mortlach, you look at so many other things and their special releases, it's like they're throwing a dart at a price board.
Yeah.
And it just makes no sense at times, and it's never in our favor. They never kind of accidentally price things at half the price. It never happens. I think that what's happened with Talisker 18, Ralfy, it's been taken out of your cabinet and out of my cabinet. And that's a shame, but I'm ready to walk away from it.
Last time I reviewed it, I was less impressed than the first time I reviewed it. I think that the marketing people at Diageo want it to be a premium, desirable designer product for the designer-led market. But whereas if you buy a Swiss watch, you're paying for the additional quality, or you buy a Burberry coat, you're paying for the additional quality. With a bottle of Talisker, you're actually paying the manufacturer to chill filter it and add burnt sugar. You're paying them for their premium product to be reduced in quality even before you buy it.
Talisker 18 was still a good sipping whiskey. You and I both bought it. We both enjoyed it. We may have mixed opinions about it. But if somebody liked that style, we would have been happy to recommend it £70 to £80. That's not going to happen anymore. And one more thing, if they're partnering with luxury brands, it's hilarious to see Bowmore partnering with Aston Martin and Macallan partnering with Bentley. It's hilarious. Okay, let's forget about the drink driving connotations here. Let's just talk about the luxury placement. If I get inside a Bentley and I know nothing about cars, and if I've just come from a VW Golf, I can immediately appreciate a stark difference in quality.
Yes.
If I sit with a bottle of Macallan and I've just come away from a Glendronach, I don't think that I would need to know a hell of a lot about whiskey in order to appreciate that difference. Yeah. It's a very dangerous game that they're playing, where they're inflating the perception of what the product actually is,
right?
And there's no actual weight behind it.
Yeah, Roy, do you really think they know what they're doing? Because look at the analogy that you've quite accurately pointed out, that the connection between alcohol and fast cars and driving. It's
on Dramface this week, we shared the story. We shared the news story about Macallan and Bentley, and we had to put a disclaimer on there saying that we don't condone drink driving. This is us basically saying this is utter nonsense. And we linked to the Whiskey Sponge article, which was fantastically written and put together, and we linked to that directly just to kind of shine a torch on just how nonsensical this is. John Mark McLean is in. He's celebrating being a member for 19 months, saying 13 months of barfly brilliance and malty magnificence. Thank you so much, John. And Christopher Malloy saying blended malts will be their own category. You're ahead of us, Chris. You always get a sharp eye. You might have picked that out. Mamuka 1977 has bought a dram as well to say cheers, gentlemen, with her an 18-year-old for another successful and highly anticipated OSWAs. There's a lot of weight on the OSWAs this year. You know, there's the follow-up album from last year's. People were kind of kind to us. It was our first thing last year. But now we've got to really follow up. There's got to be a bit of spit and polish here, Ralfy. All the things that we're talking about.
Not too much.
All of these are all drivers for why the OSWAs came about in the first place, right?
Yeah.
We're not trying to compete with other awards programs. We don't care. We just don't care about that. What we want to do is find a platform to celebrate where we think and where our community thinks the good value, the quality, the integrity, the attainable whiskies are coming from. Would you agree?
I would agree. And also the fact that we're too lazy to organise black tie dinners for the industry worthies in a 5-star hotel in London.
Aye, a wee bit of that too. I certainly don't want to get involved in event planning. I did that for a fair chunk of my life and it was okay, but no, that's not what I want to do. You're right, you're spot on. It's not about that. You cannot pay to enter these. All you can do to get into the OSWAs, is just make really good, honest whiskey and then share it with the community, say the words, use transparency, let people understand it, understand that your customer is more knowledgeable than they've ever been, and putting confusing things on the label is actually to be celebrated because it's not confusing. Don't consider your customer base to be stupid, and it doesn't take much to replace your marketing flannel on the back label with good, honest words. Because what I see, I'm a marketer. I've been a marketer for over 10 years, 12 years. I see copy and paste. The language that I read on the back of a whiskey bottle is the same language that I see on the back of electronics equipment, and so many other. It's the same copy paste marketer's language. There's a new way of doing things.
Can I ask you a
somebody
question?
Who really knows about the product and tell the truth.
So, can I ask you a question, Roy? What do you think of Glenmorangie's new branding as a marketing person?
Well, there's a kind of been a listen, as a marketing person, if you change the aesthetics and the branding on something, you immediately get a pushback. It's very rare for a rebranding to be accepted wholeheartedly. There's a lot of kind of emotion comes into that side of things, the aesthetic side of things. So anybody that does a rebrand is going to be up against it. I've always found Glenmorangie's bottles and their labeling to be really quite elegant and understated and fitting. There's a new kind of shouty element coming in now, a kind of much more modern, cutting edge feeling things. And if it was my choice, I would be happy to stick with the old version, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
I would be more invested. I mean, a Glenmorangie 10, I have it here. I enjoy Glenmorangie 10. I don't buy Nectar d'Ors, La Santa much anymore. The Quinta Ruban I have here. the Quinta Ruban got a bump in specification. You'll remember it went up 2 years in age.
Yeah.
You know, it became a much more compelling offering. But
Very
I would
much
just
so.
generally say, I think if I was more invested in that brand, I would have more of an opinion about it. It's, yeah, I'm ambivalent, I think, is the short answer.
Yeah. You see, what we notice is with the increasing transportation of boxed single malt whiskey into the kind of designer sphere of travel retail with the bright lights, it's very bright. They've got the kind of yellow brick road floor going through the airports, or it may be one of the growing on high street retailers like the Whiskey Shop, right, who have more sort of theatre going on in special displays and presentations, is that when whiskey goes down the road of trying to compete with its rivals cosmetically, it ends up in the same territory as detergent, washing up liquid, and household domestic products, because it's or even breakfast cereal. They've got to use brighter colours beside other boxes of brighter colours, which get even more brighter until you. And I brought this out. I was thinking about it tonight, and I thought this was a really good example of what some whiskey brands could well be in the future if there's not a hand of restraint.
Oh dear, I wasn't ready for that stunt.
Right? This is the colour it is to stand out between packets of super white detergent, bio detergent, non-bio detergent, eco detergent, enviro detergent, extra bubbly detergent, and on the back they've got the pictures of how you use it for people that can't be too lazy to read the words.
And this is a product that has far less emotional buy-in than malt whiskies do, certainly for people like us, let's be honest. But hand on heart, I'm going to share a quick aside. My wife came to me not more than 3 days ago and said that she's been buying Persil and Ariel for years, and she sees them both as the same brand because of that white box thing. So that's when you see the differentiation. They all do the same thing, more or less. So you see the differentiation in the bright, blingy, sparkly primary colours and things like that. Whiskey is, and somebody just mentioned there, why would you change it? Why would that be changed? Nick Wilkes, it was, said, what was the motivation for them changing it if it's successful already? And I think that it's just to be seen as not standing still, not to fall a victim of stuffy or anything. They want to seem to be being bright, and that's fine to evolve and go forward. I think that it's becoming more relevant. The zeitgeist today is to put much more effort into the quality that's inside and rely less on the bling on the outside. Word of mouth, it's malt whiskey. It's a finite product. It's batch made, it's small.
We like to think so, Roy, but honestly, see the quality of some casks being used in the industry these days. And we're noticing it in the content of the bottles. We're noticing it, first of all, in blended Scotch, that sort of burnt, slightly scotched, sort of sour oak note. And it comes through into some basic single malts. Lafroig Select, good example, where you're tasting something it's not that it's bad, it simply gets something missing. And this is one important reason why these companies chill filter the product, is to chill filter out the blemishes as a result of using mediocre casks. That's one reason why they would chill filter.
Well, I've been sipping on this long row, and every sip is distracting my attention, Ralfy. I have to say, it's a shame that this has been sealed for so long. I'm glad it's open now because I really enjoy this. Gally McComish did a review on Dramface of long row this week. And I think that's why it was in my mind for me to grab it and open it tonight. It's just a terrific whiskey. I know that it's difficult to get depending on where you are, but out of the things that do come out of that wee place down in Campbelltown, I think it's one of the more available ones. It's just fantastic whiskey. It's how can something be sweet but not sickly? It's exactly like that. It's a kind of sweet peat with a bit of saltiness in there too. It's amazing. Adrian Madrigal, good to see Adrian. He's saying, Ralfy, I give 86 points to Vanish. That's a blended detergent mark. Good for you, Adrian. Well done. Okay, I tell you what we're going to do then, Ralfy, because we are falling into the negativity. We said we'd try hard not to, but we're just getting it out. We're clearing the air a wee bit, right? We're just kind of venting.
Absolutely.
So we'll go through what we learned in 2021 through the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. It's been widely accepted that it was a success last year. We're so up for, we're ready, we're keen, we're excited to bring it again in 2022. And we have made some, there's no changes, but we would say it's evolved a little bit. There are some refinements there, right? I think the best thing to do is just mention how it's going to work, talk about the refinements, the changes that we've put in place. And when I mention the changes, maybe I'll hit over to you as to why we've put those changes in, right? The first thing I'm going to say is that the model hasn't changed. Sorry, Ralfy, you were going to say something there, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to, even before you started, just remind all the malt mates and viewers that the reason that the OSWAs started in the first place was because, and as you've quite rightly pointed, that after a while a certain cynicism can creep into our malt moments. And it's partly because we're simply getting more experienced, and as a result, we underestimate the incredible memory, accuracy, and integrity of our sense of smell and taste, because they never let us down, because it's part of survival. It's hardwired into us, and that we do notice over time that you start to spot the flaws as much as you spot the good stuff in whiskey.
Yes,
and
yes.
To balance, to actually share our experience to help the whiskey fan who's going online looking for something useful, tangible, and meaningful. We really waited till pandemic lockdown, which meant that the on-trade stopped, retail high street shops closed. The only way the Scotch whisky industry, or any industry globally, could sell their product was either online or by local delivery. And this really happened so fast that it shocked businesses. They had to react and respond. And this is where the internet suddenly gained far more legitimacy and importance as a core part of their business communication and interaction with the customer. So we kicked off the OSWAs last year, and the actual awards ceremony, Roy, has had over 47,000 views. And if I say so myself, I think that even with our little blemishes here and there, we did a pretty damn good job of it, particularly with right from the start, the massive amount of support, endorsement, and communication we've received from active whiskey fans online. We could tell that people were waiting for something like the OSWAs, because it is a powerful conduit to connect the active customer, not the passive consumer here, the active customer with experience, who's fussy and demanding but will pay the price, with the industry direct. And I thought it was so heartwarming when Springbank came on, and Aaron came on, and Ardna Murkin came on and gave us their time, and they made an effort, and they're showing their certificate on their premises, and they're proud of it, because these businesses know how something like the OSWAs really matters and impacts them. And there's no doubt about it. More and more sales of all liquors around the world are happening because of online conversation.
And it's no coincidence that the brands that you mention also tend to be the most naturally focused, and they certainly try to be transparent as well. Simon Ray is quite right. He's saying Aaron seemed to do a great job with its rebranding. I would agree. Most people love the new branding of Aaron, apart from the glug that doesn't happen out the rounded shoulder, but it's a really good job. Time for Dram Gregor is saying breaking up the word mark won't help problems people have pronouncing Glenmorangie. That's right. I mean, maybe there is a deliberate thing there, but will it be effective or not, Gregor? I have to agree with you that people will still carry on suggesting that it's Glenmorangie. Tom Harris saying, I hope people don't judge me by how I look. I have no desire to reinvent my look. If anything, I am regressing to the caveman look. That's okay. I hope we're all allowed to do that, Tom. Absolutely. Fantastic. I would suggest that there was one more branding thing I wanted to look at. Somebody was talking about, I think it was No Rolex was talking about he was celebrating the new Ben Romack branding. And I know that it didn't go down well with everybody, but I am also a fan. The new Ben Romack branding was, for me, a step forward. Just a shame that they missed the opportunity to go with natural presentation. Dribs and Drams said, I played a Celtic festival in Alberta last weekend. Lots of whiskey. So it's my quarterly dry week this week. Picked up some nice bottles, though. Good for you, Dribs and Drams. I hope your dry week is going very well, and hope the bottles that you picked up at what sounds like a cool festival are good bottles. We'll maybe see it in the Dribs and Drabs channel in the future. Okay, Peter Lee's asking how the evening's going. Well, it's just about to get going. Ralfy, I'm just going to start talking about the OSWAs. Can I just...
Go for it.
I think that we were always, and you have been very canny about saying, listen, let's just do ever so slight tweaks, just the focus on keeping it simple, which is absolutely the right beat to the right rhythm. The feedback that we had, we could understand where the feedback was coming from, but a lot of it we knew what we wanted to do, so we could kind of take it on board and adjust slightly, but keep it the way it was. Other elements of feedback we took on board and said, that's right, we need to do that. So there's a couple of things I'll say at the off. This is the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. That Scotch word in there is very important, not because there's very few categories that focus on Scotch. We are a Scotch community. The awards are from the Scotch community. It's us that's doing this thing. If the bourbon community want to come on and do the bourbon awards, if another kind of whiskey category, Japanese whiskey, whatever it may be, want to do their own awards, then they can go along and do that. What we are saying is that we are a Scotch community of whiskey drinkers. We're focused on Scotch. We're rooted in Scotch. Our foundation is in Scotch. Scotch is not all that we drink. So everything is inclusive and open where appropriate. That's where the Scotch word comes from. So you will find that we try very hard to focus on whiskey from the perspective of the Scotch whiskey drinking community. Tom Harris bought us a very generous dram. Thank you so much, Tommy, saying these two gentlemen check all the boxes and define integrity. I'm a huge fanboy, and that will never change. Tom R. from Chicago. Thank you very much, my friend. I'm going to have the last wee sip. A long road to you. Cheers, Tom. Thank you. So that's the first thing to get out of the way. The second thing I want to talk about is the fact that people talked about, oh, you've given an award for this whiskey, but then you've had this People's Choice. Why didn't they get an award? The People's Choice is not an award. The People's Choice is the populism side of the thing, if you like. That's us just going out to the community and saying, what are you drinking? What are you finding that ticks the boxes in this category? It's a chart. It's a top 10 chart. It's the top 10 most popular whiskies. And it's a bit like what the OSWAs would be if we didn't take our place as online reviewers and commentators, creators, contributors. If we just put it out to a public vote, the People's Choice is what you would get. But it's more than that. The OSWAs have to be more than that. We are standing here week after week, drinking hopefully much more whiskey than you guys are, in order to try and work out where the quality and integrity is coming from. We need to take our place as experienced enthusiasts, as commentators, as content creators, as reviewers, and say we want to offer up these whiskies. We have to do what we do in week out as part of the OSWAs. That's why the nominations are curated, and that's why we separate it from the People's Choice, which is a chart. There's no award for People's Choice. It's just information for you to see where the top 10 lies. I predict that will change very lightly year after year. Let's see how it goes this year. For this year, we've gone with 9 categories. Last year was 8, so there is one more added category, and Chris Malloy has already predicted what that category was. Let's take you through it. See if I can add this in. And I'll just go through the 9 categories. I'll read it out. Ralph and I will discuss it for a moment and skip on very, very quickly. All of this is going to be coming out to you over the next few weeks. When I go through the schedule with you, you'll know exactly what the hard point dates are going to be. First category is virtually unchanged from last year. Best value whiskey 2022. I'll read this out. These are the fairly priced whiskies that still offer great quality and help people take their first steps, yet still provide great value at sipping for experienced drinkers. This is where we celebrate the whiskies that are still attainable despite continually rising prices. So the only thing that we've changed here is the language we used last year you found confusing because we talked about entry level. So what we're actually targeting here is good value whiskies. There's no price guide on this anymore because value is a very subjective thing. But what we have to understand is what we're focusing on here is whiskies that we believe punch above their weight. Whiskies that can help encourage people in to the category of whiskey appreciation. Whiskies that can still provide engagement for experienced drinkers. We made a wee change here, didn't we, Ralfy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It kind of opens it up, but still contains it, because the definition of value is entirely open to the contributors who are shortlisting the whiskies for consideration. And it's focusing with the word value, you see, you're focusing on something that's economical for a whiskey, for someone who's in a budget or a tight budget. What whiskey can they buy that's going to give them a real solid experience and just not put them too far out of pocket?
Yeah, we're not talking about cheap. We're talking about value. It's a different thing. So that's virtually unchanged from 2021. And I think hopefully that's going to start to make a lot more sense, especially in the context when people can look to see what was offered in 2021 and what's nominated in 2022. The second category, best blended whiskey. Mm-hmm. How can we celebrate whiskey? How can we talk about Scotch whiskey if we don't talk about 90% or close to 90% of the volume? 60+% of the value of exports of Scotch whiskey is blended whiskey. To ignore it would be crazy. I don't know how much blended whiskey you drink, but I still enjoy blends, and I know that Ralfy does too. And it's important that we take a place to say, if you are enjoying blended whiskies, which could theoretically offer a far greater experience than any single component, what are you enjoying? And if we're struggling to find blended whiskies to enjoy, and it's all about single malt for us, well, that tells a lot of people out there that there needs to be more focus on a huge category for Scotch whiskey. I'll read this out before I pass over to Ralfy. Blends are not all about mass market consistency. It's often said that truly great blend can deliver an experience greater than the sum of its parts. I know it's a bit of a trope, but it's true. Some of those most celebrated whiskies are blended whiskies. This is where we're going to celebrate those. You still enjoy a blend, Ralfy, don't you?
Well, I enjoy a blended malt, but we're leaving it open to the contributors who are providing the shortlist. They can have a blended Scotch or a blended malt.
That's right, and that's going to come up next. I've just had a wee dram bought by Graham Young over in Canada. I know that he's working today, Graham. Thanks for dropping in. Thank you for all the help. For the OSWAs, cheers to my two favourite whiskey reviewing gentlemen. Thank you very much, Graham, and thanks to you. I'm going to pour a wee drop of this Tomatin Legacy as I sip along here. This is a blend of casks, but it's all single malt, so it remains a single malt whiskey. But what Ralfy's talking about is blended malt whiskies, where we take malt whiskey from more than one distillery, mix it together to give us a blended malt. One of the biggest growing categories in whiskey, I would say Scotch whiskey certainly. So it now has its own category. Category 3 is the best blended malt. So that's where Christopher predicted we've made the differentiation there. We've changed it to say, look, it's a bit confusing. We're part of the problem if we're lumping the B word in together. Blended malts and blends shouldn't be in the same category because why? It's a different drink. Blends are wheat, corn, grain whiskey mixed with malt whiskies. Blended malts are only small batch produced malt whiskies. They are not the same thing. I'm speaking about the context of Scotch here. You apply it to where you are, you will notice that none of the categories so far focus on Scotch whiskies. because it doesn't need to exclude other whiskies that fit the definition. Best blended malt should be clear for anyone. If it says blended malt on the label, or if it's a mix of malt whiskies, then it fits inside this category. Category 4 is relatively unchanged, but just a slight change to the title. Last year, we called this best grain whiskey. What we're basically doing is throwing it out there to anything that wasn't malt. It's a bit clumsy, but this is the best non-malt whiskey. We've changed it because if we say grain whiskey, that tends to have people thinking about single grain, and that's not what we wanted to do. We want to open this up to everything, as described here. Here's where you can get creative. This category is open to all grain types except single malt. Rye, corn, wheat, and anything else is included, opening up many other styles of whiskey, including bourbon. In recent times, we've even heard how oats is back on the menu again. Oat, we're seeing whiskey made from oat mash. Fantastic stuff. Ralfy, it's right to just say non-malt instead of grain, right?
It's fine. It's a slight change in the title, just to kind of help give focus on the fact that automatically we're removing single malted barley from the equation, because there are other whiskies out there, including in Scotland, which are not malt specific.
There are lots. We've got rye whiskey made in Scotland again.
We do, yeah.
We've got it really, what this category does is kind of holds up this idea that, you know, we may 90% or more of our collection may be single malt whiskey if you're typical, if you're a wee bit like me, and potentially Ralfy too. But it's not because we don't want to try other things. It's not because we aren't interested in other things. And when we come across other things that are interesting, this is the category that we talk about it and celebrate it, especially if it brings those core attributes of the OSWAs: attainable availability and good quality and integrity. That's we want to focus on it. Danny's bought us a dram, Danny Hebbington, to say, sitting here with Ralfy and Roy, a Ralfy and a Roy bottling. Good for you, Danny. Category for YouTube creator bottling. You all win. That's really, really niche, Danny, but I hope you're enjoying it, buddy, and thanks for your dram. Now we move away for the expressions a wee bit and move into the more kind of producer side of the awards, where we skip through a few producer awards. And number 5 should be straightforward. There's no big change here at all. There's no change. Best Distillery 2022. Which producers have brought the best experiences in the past year? Many are committed to available and affordable quality, while others chase what the market will stand. That's about quality and price. We celebrate the former. This is clear. Springbank were the runaway winners last year. Be interesting to see how it falls this year, especially when it's been difficult over the last 12 months, more difficult than ever to get our hands on Springbank. Nothing changes there, Ralfy, right?
Nothing changes there. All good.
I would like to see other distilleries outside of Scotland creep into the nominations this year. Be interesting if that happened. Category 6, Best New Distillery 2022. Now, this was a wee bit ambiguous last year. We had to kind of qualify because we were talking about new releases that had happened in the award year, the previous year. What we're actually doing here is we're just going to make this a rolling category. If a distillery has been founded in the previous 10 years, the previous decade, they're probably needing a wee bit of recognition and a helping hand. And if they're making good quality product, we're ready to help them do that. Here's where we celebrate the best new distillery. Again, notice that none of these categories are focusing on new distilleries in Scotland or distilleries in Scotland. We're talking about all distilleries. It's inevitable that this is coming from the Scotch whisky loving community, so we're going to focus on that naturally. But hopefully the new wording here is going to make us consider if there are other new distilleries coming over the hill that's bringing really good quality product at a good fair price. This is where they could potentially get some support. So in the last decade, if you're founded in the last decade, you're a new distillery. Sorry, Kilhoman. Sorry, Daftmill. Sorry, Glengyle. You're established distilleries now. Category 7, second from last. Sorry, it's not second from last. This year there are 9 categories, but still in producers and focus. This is where we celebrate best independent bottler. I'll read this out. We are privileged in whisky that we can enjoy our favourite spirit not only through the official releases, but also from independent bottlers with a different take on things. Focused on quality at a fair price, we award the indies who have excelled. This was an interesting one. Last time around, you remember that we didn't nominate, I think it was Cadenheads didn't get a nomination, and the people's vote came in shouting quite loudly about Cadenheads. But this is indies are a huge part of what we enjoy in Scotch whisky, right? Independent bottlings, single casks, their own take on small batch and small runs, right?
Yeah, increasingly so.
They are struggling to bring the same price proposition that they did in the past. Would you agree that indies we're starting to see some really quite salty prices from indies?
It depends on the indie, Roy, but to a certain extent, I can understand it because many small independent bottlers are bottling at cask strength rather than 40 or 43% because they don't want to chill filter the product. They have got a very specific market. They're catering for that market to the experienced whiskey drinker, and certainly in the UK where you and I are, the amount of customs and excise duty on a cask strength whiskey works out at roughly £25 a litre of alcohol, which is virtually the same as the 20% value added tax. So for the independent bottler, bottling at cask strength consistently with the majority, if not all their products, they're paying not quite 40% purely in tax because of the UK taxation system. And that's a reason why, a very legitimate reason actually, why some of the prices are a little bit salty, because there is a premium for the strength of the alcohol, and the strength of the alcohol carries the flavour, carries the sensation range, carries the form of the whiskey.
Time and time again, you start to sound like somebody who's actually kind of addicted to alcohol when you talk about looking for cask strength and higher ABV whiskies. But what happens is, as you go down your journey, you realise just how much more flavour and engagement and texture and grip and enjoyment comes from higher ABV whiskies. Independent bottlers have always facilitated that for us. It's fine to have to pay a wee bit more when you know the quality that you're getting is going to be good. But I think independent bottlers have to be a wee bit careful, because I think that if they do start to get a bit free and easy and just charge, because they just simply know they can charge the money, I think that they will come unstuck in time, because most indies now are above the price of official bottlings often. And that means that then they can't just, relax and take a different take on it. They have to have a better take on it when they're charging more.
Absolutely.
So this is where we celebrate the independent bottlers, and I think that that's good. I know that depending on where you are, independent bottlers might not be as relevant. We understand that. At every point of the OSWAs process, if you can't offer a good nomination, you don't need to. You can skip it. If you can't vote on a category, you don't need to vote. You can skip it. We're only interested on harvesting knowledge and insight and experience. So we're not going to force anybody to vote or offer nominations where they can't add value. Second from last, here we open it right up. World whiskey. Any world whiskey. Any whiskey that's produced anywhere in the world from any grain, from any mash, as long as it can be defined as whiskey or whiskey. This category celebrates the best the world has to offer. We are experiencing an unprecedented explosion in global whiskey production, and this category recognises that phenomenon with products from any country, anywhere. And I put the disclaimer in there, obviously it must be defined as whiskey or whiskey with an E. With or without the E, it doesn't matter. So same, no change from last year. That's exactly the same. Ralfy, you're already kind of hinting that you're going to be taking a steely eye from the bothy on world whiskies next year. Is that right?
That's correct. I tend to have intend to next year go on a world tour from the bothy. and buy whiskies from other parts of the world and review them. And basically, we're now in an age of being a global village, and it's also a global whiskey village. And it's worth mentioning, people will have spotted that the OSWAs last year and this year is an outward looking award. We're not inward looking and being super specific. It's only Scotch whiskey. It's only single malt. It's only blended Scotch. It's only blended malt Scotch. We're outward looking and engaging with whiskies from elsewhere, because being pragmatic, there's nothing better to keep Scotch whisky on its toes, to keep producing the quality, than to have some competition from other regional areas.
Again, once more, we find ourselves in alignment. I fully agree. Dave Swift has thrown a wee dram towards away. He's saying, got to bounce, chaps, catch the replay. He's annoyed. He's saying, I'm still trying to educate my clients not to bloody interrupt the vPub. Thank you, Dave. Thanks very much. And thanks for dropping in. I hope you haven't kept your clients waiting too long. So that brings us to our final category. 9th category, 9 this year. Best single malt Scotch in 2022. This is the only category where we define that we're looking for a Scotch whisky nomination.
Yeah.
While there are no further definitions on price or style, as long as it's Scotch single malt, this whisky should be something that is attainable, offers exceptional value, and is widely available. Here we celebrate the Scotch whisky community with the best the sector has to offer. And there, in that, we have our 9th category. I don't think there's anything else to kind of mention there. We've got that covered. That's kind of and it's difficult. We've put that out at the end, and it almost suggests like that's the kind of main event or whatever. That's not really fully intentional. The reason that it's out at the end is because that's what defines our community. We're the online Scotch whisky community, so we've kept that till less. But I think we've managed to open up every other category this year to not exclude anything. If it's good, if it's affordable, if it's integrity forward, the quality's there, the pricing's fair, if it's attainable, all of these things. Talk about it, celebrate it. We're enjoying
it. And furthermore, another thing we're doing this year, Roy, is compared to last year, our contributors are to the shortlist for voting were primarily YouTube whiskey reviewers. And this year, we've extended the net a little bit to get experience from people who are not part of the whiskey industry, but are very much aware of the whiskey industry. So the contributors, our local experts, so to speak, will include YouTube-based whiskey reviewers, but also reviewers and people who really seriously know about whiskey.
This is important to mention, and it's good to bring it up now at this point.
Yeah.
One of the criticisms that we had, not from our community, because they understood and we were going with a safe playground, let's say, last year. I'm just dropping in links to the channels that I've been spreading some love towards tonight. I'm just dropping in links for Bo Jackson out at Drams on Deck. He's been plugging away, and only through the Barflies help tonight managed to break his 1,000 subs. So I've just dropped that link in again, and I'm dropping in.
Good stuff.
Yeah, he's through it. He's managed to break through, and hopefully Wade down at McIntyre's Malts, he can enjoy some he's putting out great content there, and I looked at him today and he had 26 subscribers, so it's going to be good to see those guys getting a wee bit of love from the community that's really the benefits from the content that they're putting out there.
Yeah. Can I ask you, just to interrupt a wee bit briefly?
Yeah.
Can you think of any other online YouTube community that would actually help endorse and provide a little bit of love and support for fledgling channels with decent quality content who are just looking for a little bit of recognition? I can't.
But that's the thing, is that if you and I, Ralfy, we both recognize a fledgling channel with a good delivery, some knowledge to share, some real insight. They've obviously put a bit of effort into their content. They're serious. They're not kind of flash in the pan. They're here, potentially here for the long. They need a wee bit of support. And then there's the guys that just don't, for whatever reason, the algorithm hasn't been kind to them. They haven't got a clickbaity video out there yet, so they haven't been given a torchlight yet. But they've been grinding away for sometimes years and struggling to get 1 or 2 subscribers a week. It's brutal out there. We know that it's difficult, right? You started way before, all that competition was out there.
Very much so.
But we all noticed that and by the way, Ralfy and I noticed that it's harder for Ralfy and I to get subscribers when the channel choice is so huge. We only have so many minutes that we can spend watching YouTube content. But by building the quality of what's on YouTube, we build the draw. We build the audience. We invite in more and more of a community so that everyone benefits, and that's the intention there. Going back to what Ralfy was talking about, if you're a contributor on YouTube, if you're a contributor, a creator on YouTube, if you're a reviewer out there in the web space, if you've got a really well-established Instagram platform, for example, if you've got anything and you believe, just go to the contributor page on the OSWAs if you want to participate and fill in the email. Just click on the button to say, I want to be part of this.
Absolutely.
There's criteria there. If you fit the criteria, you're from the Scotch community, you've got an experience and you've got a voice and you've got valid things to say. If you've been going for a year and you've been sharing within the last year, look at the criteria there. If you fit that, click and tell us about you, because there's ways for you to be involved. Ralfy's spot on. This year, we've moved outside the YouTube realm. A core contributor this year will be Malt Review, one of the preeminent whiskey review sites that's out there. It's been out there for years. They're on board. We've also, I mean, it sounds crazy until you think about it. It makes sense. Who is face-to-face, hands-on, real-life feeling in real time the feedback when they serve somebody a dram of whiskey, the on-trade, the people over a bar at a whiskey bar? So we've reached out to them and said, hey, do you support this concept? Do you like this? We love the concept. Do you want to be involved? Absolutely, we want to be involved. And think of the potential that has. From there, they can kind of put their toe in the water and see how it goes and say, you know what? I've got most of these bottles that's been nominated. I'm going to put a wee section in my bar so that people can walk into my bar and try the nominations for the OSWAs and make their own mind up.
Absolutely. Brilliant idea.
All of this kind of thing can happen because we're reaching out. We're not saying that all the opinion, all the knowledge, all the thing is in YouTube. That's not the case. We did it inside YouTube last year because we needed to prove a concept and we needed a safe space, a safe sandbox to do it in. And we did it last year. But now we're ready to move outside of YouTube. Ralfy and I cannot manage 100 channels, 100 contributors. We will still have a core group of contributors and nobody will know who they are. And then we'll move out to the wider contributor space as a model of refinement. That's how it's going to work. That adds, think of the robustness and the integrity that brings. No one person can sway the nominations or the votes in any way. It's not even if you're Ralfy. You can't do it. You can put your nomination forward and you can hope that your peers support you on that and vote your nomination forward for the public vote. That's what you're doing. And we've got so many people involved that if anybody tries to corrupt it or reach in and say, here's some money and some free whiskey and things, I want this in the OSWAs, you better be very careful who you reach out to, right? Because you don't know who's a core contributor and you don't know. You would have to go around so many of them to make any impact, and then you would be caught very quickly. So it's very robust. Sorry, Ralfy, you were going to mention something.
And ultimately, the voting, the final voting within the categories comes down to the community. There's no select judges in this competition. The judges are the community, anybody and everybody online who cares to vote, who cares to contribute, who cares to engage, who cares to connect, therefore has a stake in this award. Because the fine selection, the final recipients of the shortlist, the content, the whiskies nominated in the shortlist, and the winners are absolutely down to people who actually buy the whiskey. And it's the clearest, most, I have to say, legitimate connection between the customer and the industry.
The producer, yeah.
The producer. And I think there's people far-sighted in smart people within the industry who really see that. And the only way it could ever happen is online. And now, at this moment in time, we're cutting edge here. Folks, everybody contributing and involved in this is making history.
Well, let's hope so. It's down. It's on a lot of our shoulders just to see it over the finish line each year and make sure that it happens. There's a lot of work behind it. And if anybody's ever wondering how it's funded, Ralfy and I do not. We don't hide this at all. Ralfy and I pay for this thing. And the only reason that we can pay for it is because of the support we get from not the industry, but from Patreon support. That's how Ralfy and I function. That's how we exist. That's how we're funded. If it's always optional. You can consume our content for free. Absolutely. But that's how we exist.
Roy, and that it's our Patreon subscribers. You've got your Patreon channel. I've got a Patreon channel. It is our Patreon channel. When they subscribe to us, part of that subscription pays to enable this award to have our OSWA channel, to finance the certificate,
the manners,
yeah, and so the whole sponsorship, essentially, the financial aspect, is coming from whiskey customers, and this is unique. There is no other award, not another single award anywhere near this particular strategy.
And I would also say that the reason that it's you and I that's banging our gums about the OSWAs all the time is because we founded it and we have to promote it. We have to do the thing. We have to do our bit. But at every stage, you will not see Roy and Ralfy branding. You will not see it ever talked about. This is the Roy and Ralfy Awards. You will only see it mentioned that it's from our idea. We don't want to own this. We want whiskey. We want the whiskey to community to own this. We hope we do it justice. McCallum Fine and Rare Doc is saying, any new insight in the challenge that virtually nobody can seriously vote in all categories due to the fact that we have surely not tried all the nominated products. Doc, by all means, criticise and ask questions like this. But I would ask everybody that asks a question like that with the same hand, offer an alternative. Because there isn't one. It's impossible for even Ralfy and I to be able to have a really deep insight over any category that we want covered. That's why we need to crowdsource it. That's why we need to work as a community. And if you cannot offer insight, and if you cannot place a nomination for a category or even place a vote for a category, skip the category.
Yeah.
We'll go to great lengths to make that very clear. And if you see something in the category, wait, the whiskey that I'm loving right now has been missed, you will have, just like last year, the opportunity to put that forward. We heard it with Caden Heads. We heard it with Ralfy Distillery last year. My goodness, we forgot Ralfy, and you shot us in the back for it, didn't you? Just let us know that we'd made a mistake there, right? Wait, what has happened to Ralfy? The people's vote came through strong and put Ralfy right at the top. You reminded us that we'd forgotten Kilkerran 12 last year as well, using the people's vote. So there is never a perfect model. There's never. But if you do find something, consider the alternative. You don't need to have an alternative to give us feedback, but sometimes that's enough to make you fathom why we've done things in a certain way. Danny Hebington is saying, by God, you do it great justice. Watching the guys Springbank accepting their award made it all worthwhile. I was in Springbank not more than a week and a half ago, and their award is sitting on the washback bar to this day. Good stuff, Ralfy. I'm going to we'll round out the dates, shall we?
Yes.
The harvesting of the nominations starts tomorrow. So if you're a core contributor, you're going to start to find your email box filling up with little requests from Ralfy and I to start harvesting the nominations. And we'll continue to harvest and refine those nominations throughout September, right up until September 24th. September 24th is when the public vote will be launched. That's when everybody gets involved. There will be a public vote for you to go in and vote for what you believe to be your favorite, or add something that you think has been missed. Skip the ones that you've got no interest in and submit your vote. You need to have a Google sign in. You have to have a Google account, the exact same as last year. That's what restricted a lot of people from participating. And I understand. But if you're able to comment on a YouTube video, you've got a Google account. That's what you need. We don't see it. We don't use it. You're never going to get a spam email from us. We're never going to sell or move your data anywhere. It's all just about keeping the integrity, keeping it strong and robust. That'll happen on September 24th, and it'll run up until middle of October. So you'll have just over 3 weeks for the public vote to go out there. During that time, Ralfy will be talking about it. I'll be talking about it. Hopefully, all of the participants involved will be encouraging you to vote during that 3-week spell. And then we'll have 2 weeks of administration and logistics to build up to the ceremony on the 5th of November this year. It was the 6th of November last year. We're going to go out with some fireworks in the UK, at least. It's going to be bonfire night here. But yeah, it'll be the 5th. Remember, the 5th of November.
Yeah.
Ralfy, we've got through a lot tonight. I feel like it's been we've thumped on the accelerator pedal on the first night back after the summer break for the vPub. Are you able to give us a wee bit more Ralfy energy and stay for the quiz at the end?
Yes. It's
fantastic. Listen, for everybody,
lined up.
For everybody that's in, if you believe in the OSWAs, if you believe in what we're doing, if you trust us, leave a wee like in the video, leave your comment and your feedback underneath.
Yeah.
And if I've done my homework tonight, if I've either stayed up or got up early in the morning and put the chapter markers in and you're watching the replay, you'll be able to watch the whole thing by skipping forward to the chapter that's relevant to you or whatever your interest lies in.
Yeah. If I might add, please, Roy, that
Aye.
For those who are familiar with the OSWAs, please tell people in your whiskey club or in the local bar who are into whiskey, spread the word, please, because it's a simple, practical, and very original format. And what we're looking to do is grow, because the more the awards grow, the more the industry takes our content, takes your contribution, voting in this award seriously. It starts to have more and more impact over time. And there are people who they thoroughly enjoy their whiskey, they buy a lot of whiskey, but they're not necessarily as active online as your malt mate. So please spread the word.
Sure, that's a great point. Just get the word out there. Hopefully we've kind of earned our stripes in 2021 and we'll do the same. We'll try and do everyone justice again in 2022 so that you don't lose face if you are recommending this platform or this concept to your pals and things, people that you trust. Kiyoshi Fukui over in Japan has bought me a dram in Japanese yen, which is really cool. No comment or anything, but he's just saying thank you. And Kampai Planet is also saying, we believe. Thank you very much, Matt. Kilted Drama is celebrating the fact that Malt Review will be involved this year as well. Thanks very much. Gary, isn't it? I think it's Gary, Kilted Drama. And the Whiskey Novice Gin is saying all good stuff. Night, all night, Roy and Ralfy. Great to be back in the vPub. It's nice to have you here. Cohen is here as well. Good to see you, Cohen. Tom Elmer is still in. And Simon Ray is saying, Ralfy, Roy, great that you're both taking this forward and building on last year. It will be exciting to see the nominations. Simon, thank you as always for all the support as well, buddy. Thank you. All right, let's get the quiz on the go. How long have we been going on? We've only been going. Sorry.
Before the quiz starts, I'm absolutely bursting for a whiz. And another can of Guinness. Well, I've got no brands mentioned. I've got another can of dark beer sitting in the stream outside of the bothy. So
that's your fridge.
That's my fridge, yes. So I'll be back in a minute or two. So just you carry on without me, Roy.
I'll do that. No problem.
Know what you're doing. You're behind the bar anyway with the vPubs, so we're in safe hands.
Don't be peeing in the stream.
What? Oh, no. Well, I won't be peeing upstream of the can, put it that way.
Absolutely. Ralphie's got an ensuite bothy, so he's going off. to take care of business. Mikey Hayes saying, well done, Aqvavitae and Ralfy, for all your hard work on the OSWAs. Thank you, Mikey. So good to see you in, buddy. I hope you're keeping well. And everyone just saying the OSWAs give us a chance to be heard by the folks that provide us with the spirits we love. It's wonderful. Thank you, everyone. I agree. If that's coming across, that's part of what we're trying to do. Brian, Kilco Whiskey, I'll see you in Texas, hopefully, Brian. He's saying, who do I need to bribe to get in on this? Brian, just go along to the OSWA.co.uk is the website, but you'll see a page there called Contributors, and at the top of the 2021 Contributors page, you just click on that and you'll see that there's a button there that you can press. There's some criteria. If you feel you fit that criteria, get your name in, get involved. Take your place as a commenter, as a contributor, as a creator, as a reviewer, somebody who has experience and insight and opinion to share in whiskey. Jaime, not Jamie. Good to see you, Jaime. I hope you're doing well. No tech issues yet. Ralphie's going to cast his magic now. He's casting something. And Jeff Whiskey is saying the excitement of this is crazy. Highlight of the year. Fantastic, Jeff. And I hope you can be a part of it too, my friend. I'm excited about it too. This year is, we've kind of worked it out. We were a bit nervous last year here and there, but we've kind of worked out hopefully what works and refined what we felt we could have done a wee bit better so that we can do you all a better service. Let's see. I'm going to pull in the quiz now. Let's go back to vPub livery for this. Get rid of the OSWA livery for tonight, and we'll wait for Ralfy to pop back in. But listen, see if you're thinking of pulling a parachute and jumping out the vPub now because it's quiz time. Relax, you might enjoy it. Not only might you learn something from the quiz, which is the full intention of the thing in the first place. Okay, it's there to have a bit of fun as well. But remember that you're only playing against yourself. It's multiple choice, and you don't need to share your score unless you want to. It's actually quite good fun, and a lot of folk enjoy it. But what tends to happen towards the end when the quiz comes on is a lot of people leave. That's why the quiz is out at the end, and that's okay. If you're leaving now, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and I hope that we can count on your support and your vote for the OSWAs in 2022. James Morgan is here saying good luck. Thank you very much, James. It's good to see you and my friend. Oops, the chat just jumps. A couple of new names in. I just noticed there as well. Henrik Schmidt, that looks like a new name. Fantastic, Henrik. Nice to welcome you in. And Samuel Smith. So we've got a Henrik Schmidt and a Samuel Smith. Good to see you, Samuel. He's saying great news and keep up the great Japanese whiskey news and reviews. Mac, he's saying nice things over to his buddy at Kanpai Planet. So Ralphie's back. He's back from his visit to his ensuite facility, and he's been to his refrigerator stream. So bring Ralfy back in. You comfortable, my friend? Are you playing along?
Roy, just to let you know, I'm back from my visit. I've never heard standing downstream of your can of beer at a stream of flowing water being called, doing a whiz, being called a visit.
He's away for a visit.
I'm definitely back. Yes. And
good for you, buddy. Good for you. I've got I need to hang on a wee bit longer. But I've not been drinking Guinness tonight. I've just been sipping a wee bit of water and whiskey.
Hey, Roy, if you want to head off for a wee comfort break, I'm happy to fill in for you for 5 minutes.
I'll throw the steering wheel over to you for a bit, no problem. Right, I'm okay just now. Helen is asking if it's Ralfy unplugged. And Whiskey with Molly Ben is saying, Aqvavitae, I'm only here for the quiz. Good for you, Ben. Good stuff. Listen, good luck, everybody. Remember, it's multiple choice, and the pass mark tends to be 5 out of 10. That's good enough. Ralfy, you're playing along, my friend, so you can shout when I ask you, okay? Question 1. What happened to the iconic Tormore distillery over summer? What happened to Tormore? A, it was purchased. B, it was refurbished. C, it was temporarily closed due to energy prices. What happened to Tormore Distillery this summer? Alan's in tonight, the whiskey friend. He's just saying cheerio. He's saying good job, fella. Alan, I hope I can trust on. Look forward to your support. And for the OSWAs in 2022, my friend, it was good to have last year. Thanks for hanging out in the vPub tonight. Stephen Toth is in saying, man, we need a vPub live at the Bothy. Is that not what we've got, Stephen? Are you talking about me being at the Bothy? Maybe I can use Ralfy's facilities, his cans of Guinness and things hanging about in the stream there. Dorpass Whiskey Tim is saying, cheese, Ralfy and everyone, just getting off work and on the way home. Good for you, Tim. Nice to have you joining us. I hope work was good to you and you haven't been abused too much. The weather should be kind to you, I guess. Ralfy.
Yeah.
What happened at Turmore?
Can you see that?
Aye, it was purchased Sukhinder Singh.
Yeah.
It was purchased Sukhinder Singh and Elixir Spirits purchased Turmore from Pernod Ricard, from Chivas Brothers. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future over there. So as well as building Portnatruan on Islay, as well as having all their brands that they do, they have Port Askeig, they have Elements of Islay, they have Single Malts of Scotland and various other brands out there. They now have 2 distilleries under their wing. One of them is very mature with mature stock. Interesting stuff ahead.
Very interesting. And if I could add, Roy, that Turmore is actually a beautiful distillery. Physically, it's completely off people's radar, but it's actually a beautiful building in a very interesting location. And in my opinion, we have yet to see the best of it.
Occasionally, absolutely. As a single malt, I think it's often hidden from us. It can often have a very kind of guava, tropical fruit type note to it. As you say, it's a striking distillery. It's on the roadside there. It sticks out. It's crazy that it's never had a visitor centre. I hope that changes. I hope it's something in the plans for Elixir in the future. It would be nice to actually be able to visit Turmore. I hope they do it justice. It would be amazing to have another single malt whiskey out there that we can connect with. There has been official 14-year-old, 16-year-old bottlings from Pernod Ricard. Hit and miss. You're better off experiencing Turmore through Indies, I would say. If you answered A, give yourself a point. Moving into question 2, the first 5 questions tend to be easy, the first 4 at least. Question 2, in the 2021 inaugural OSWAs, which expression was nominated twice and won twice? What did very well in 2021? Was it Glen Scotia Victoriana? Was it Arran 10-year-old? Or was it Talisker 18-year-old? Nice and gentle. We're just easing ourselves back in post-summer break, right? Nice and easy. Right, Ralfy?
Right, so here we go.
Ralfy thinks that it's B. Absolutely. Most of you think it's B2. You were absolutely right. The best entry level, as the category was termed last year, was won by Arran. And the best single malt was also won by Arran 10-year-old as well. So if you answered B, give yourself a point. Nice and easy stuff. Question 3, which product won the best world whiskey in the 2021 OSWAs? What took the laurels as the best world whiskey? A, Amrut Fusion from India. B, Redbreast 15-year-old from Ireland. Or C, Balcones Brimstone from the US? Texas. Heading to Texas for the 10th of September, Bastards Ball. I hope I can see you there. I'm heading in a few days early in the hope that I can pull off a live stream from a spot out there. More to follow. Ralfy, what was the world whiskey that took the plaudits in 2021? Ralfy is suggesting that it's Redbreast 15-year-old, and of course, absolutely right. It was Redbreast 15-year-old. I have a Redbreast 15-year-old here, and I do enjoy it, but as noted earlier in the stream tonight, it has bumped a wee bit up in price, and I'm noticing for a lot of the single pot still Irish whiskies, the prices, I think, are holding them back. Who am I?
It's not just you, Roy. They're moving the prices too high, too fast.
I think so, Ralfy. One of my favourite single pot still Irish. I don't have on the shelf, and I haven't had on the shelf for over a year, and it's Yellow Spot 12, simply because it's too expensive. There are other better priced single pot still Irish, and there's more coming onto the market all the time. I think Middleton and Irish distillers might find themselves with a lot of competition on their doorstep very soon. But generally, Irish what pricing in Irish whiskey is a thing. It's going to be interesting to see how it all falls out. Anyway, Redbreast 15 was the winner in 2021. Question 4. Earlier this month, Ralfy suggested which producer would be much better and more successful if it were presented naturally. Ralfy had a wee bit of a rant for a B distillery. Was it A, Balvenie, B, Bamore, C, Benromac? Which distillery? And now, Ralfy, if you get this one wrong, you've got a red face, of course. But you were talking about a distillery that's out there that's just a glorious distillery making a glorious spirit, lot of stuff going for it, but being mishandled at that point where the barrels are disgorged. Between that point and making it onto the shelf, it's just somehow mishandled a wee bit, and it could just be it's so close. It just could be so much better. What is it, Ralfy?
I mean, you've really made that an easy question for me, Roy. Thank you very much. You're making me look good. I tell you what, I'm absolutely glad this isn't a Menno quiz.
Well, Menno will be back. Menno was invited tonight to take care of the quiz, but Menno is still working on a Thursday night. He's eager to come back and host some brutal quizzes for us throughout the rest of the year. But this is but maybe I'm just easing you into a false sense of security in the first half.
Probably.
Maybe the back half. Ralfy thinks Benromac, and of course it is. Anybody that's been reading Dramface as well will find similar opinions on Dramface about Benromac too. It's so close. Nick Wilkes is pointing out quite rightly that they all could, to be fair, all of the ones I mentioned, absolutely. The only differentiator there, Nick, was the fact that Ralfy was talking about that specific one. But Bamore and Balvenie could all be a wee bit better. They do different things to different people, of course. Question 5, we're looking at an image here. We're looking at quite a nice image. I need to credit World Whisky Tours for this picture I found online. Thought it was quite an attractive image. It's blown up a bit big here, so it's a wee bit kind of over-sharpened and things, but it's still pretty. Of course, I'm just going to ask you what distillery are we looking at? Are we looking at A, Dalwhinnie, B, Dalmore, or C, Dalhuin? Ralfy's got I saw him with his pen out there, confidence, striding. Ralfy has always dumped on Bowmore, says Andy Cigars. I have to say, Andy, I'm there with him. The only Fischel bottle I bought during my recent trip to Islay was actually a Bamore Fischel. I love Bamore. I love the spirit. It's fantastic stuff. What makes it into a bottle at 40% ABV is not representative of the whiskey that I taste when I visit a distillery. It's not the same. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Ralfy, do you know what distillery we're looking at there? What would you guess?
As for Bowmore, yes, I admit it. Hands up, hands up. I dump on Bowmore because very few distilleries do so little with so much. End of.
I have to agree with you. Ralfy is saying that do you think this is Dalhuin, Ralfy?
Yes.
You're spot on, as well as most of the barflies absolutely nailing it. I think there's going to be big scores tonight. I think there's a lot of people enjoying a pass mark already, easing everyone into the rhythm of things after the summer break. Question 6, which distiller is combining cars and whiskey by releasing a bottle called Horizon in collaboration with Bentley? Who is making whiskey and collaborating with automotive projects? My God. A, Bamore, B, Ardbeg, and C, Macallan. Which distiller is combining cars and whiskey by releasing a bottle called Horizon in collaboration with Bentley? You'll notice there's a wee Dramface logo here. This is there's obviously an article existing somewhere in Dramface about this.
Yeah.
Contour Bushcraft is in saying, I actually viewed a house the other week a kilometre from Dalhuin. Wow. Fantastic. Ralfy, who's coming up? You know, it's just like marketing professionals are professionals. They are super at their job. They're amazing at what they do, but sometimes they're a wee bit unhinged, are they not? What's going on here? Luxury placement. Aston Martin in their distillery on Islay.
Yeah.
We've got Bentley in collaboration with this distillery. Who is it, Ralfy? It's Macallan. Yeah. C.
Yeah. By the way, malt mates, do not drink and drive. Do not drink and drive. And do not drive and drink.
Yeah.
There's been a campaign for decades, seriously, decades, about not combining alcoholic beverages with cars.
And it's got so much more to do with the fact that you'll only spill it. It's very, very serious, and it's nuts that this is. I love the whiskey sponge piece that you put out. Aqvavitae whiskey sponge. If you read this news article on Dramface, we link to it. But it's just we had to put a disclaimer up there because it's just nonsense. Question 7. 4 new stills have been installed at Port Ellen, but what are they? What are the 4 new stills being built into the new build? Listen, the new Port Ellen distillery doesn't really resemble too much of what was originally there up until 1983. There was no real equipment in there. They're building from scratch, so they've done something. What have they done? A, they put in 2 sets of duplicates of the originals. They just copied the originals and doubled it up. Or was it B? Sorry, A, they put 2 duplicates of the originals, plus they added 2 for experimentation. That's my mistake. A is duplicates of the original plus 2 for experimentation. We notice Billy here. I'm just going to pull Billy in here.
It's not Billy.
Billy
it's
the bothy cat.
Now.
I don't think Billy's been on camera before, has he?
Yeah, a bit Fluffy. This is Fluffy.
This is Fluffy.
This is Fluffy, yes. This is the other one. And basically, he suddenly realised, I'm down in the bothy. Where's the bowl of food? Because in the house, you see, he gets his bowl of food. And he's a wee fat
cat.
Thank you. And he's a wee fatty catty. And now he's down at the bothy, you see, he's thinking, hang about, where's the bowl of food? So he's wandered off in the huff now.
Well, I've met Billy. That's the first time I've met Fluffy. So there you go. They look very similar. I guess they're siblings.
They're brothers, yeah.
Fantastic.
They have another brother called Rio, who is actually, the cat has got servants in another family, Rio. And Rio likes to go walkabouts. So he goes missing for 9 days at a time. And then the family get all worried, wondering where Rio has gone. I never have that problem with Fluffy or Billy, because every night on the dot, they are down at their food bowls, giving me a very dirty look if I don't add some decent quality cat food into their dish. And it's got to be good stuff. They won't accept the cheap stuff. And I am their slave. I know my place.
Well, as I said to you earlier, dogs have owners and cats have staff. And Stephen Toth are saying maybe Ralfy has the cat food in the stream. MJ Rodnett looks like a new name. Whiskey and driving is almost equivalent to any number of sports teams and gambling sponsorships. Yeah, I suppose that's kind of true there too. Okay, sorry, we were on to this. So I was talking about the pot stills that's been installed at Port Ellen. Have they put in 2 duplicates plus 2 for experimentation? Or have they simply just added 2 duplicate sets of the original, just doubled up on what was originally there? Or C, they've put in 2 brand new pairs of stills, brand new stills.
Right, so
A, 2 duplicates, or have they added another 2 for experimentation? B,
I'm going to get this wrong, Roy, because I don't follow the marketing flannel presentation of what these distilleries are going to do next. But
well, let's see. What would you be guessing?
A.
You think they're putting 2 duplicates of the originals plus 2 for experimentation. Well, Ralfy, you've played it not bad, because I put a banana skin in there. It might not be what you expect. Absolutely, that's exactly what they've done. They've copied the original stills, but they've also added 2 additional stills. And the idea is that they can play around with the distillate that they make. Now, they've brought back Brora faithfully, but Port Ellen, they've just brought back, it's a different layout, it's a different shape. They've tried to replicate the original stills, of course, but they've opened the gambit up a wee bit here. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and I hope that it's something we can afford, because if it's one of these luxury placement things, I mean, there's only so many slots you can have in a luxury shelf, let's be honest. Question 8. If you paid a visit to Fillier's distillery, which country would you be in? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but Fillier's distillery. Where would you be if you visited Filliers? Would you be in A, France, B, Belgium, or C, Wales?
I think it's pronounced Fillier.
You could be absolutely right. You could be right.
Mm-hmm. And
Fillier.
Fillier produce an early style of gin. I'm not giving it away, am I, Roy?
I don't think so. Where do they do that, Ralfy? Which country? Is it Wales? Is it Belgium? Is it France?
Are we ready? I'm going to go for Belgium.
You think it's B for Belgium. Erwin Laranaga is saying it's flannel, another word for shite. It's pretty close, Erwin. I think you're right. Scott Pascoe's in. Good to see you, Scott. Typical for my goofy old ass. He's saying 4 out of 7. You're doing okay. I think you'll get a pass mark tonight. Good to see you, Erwin. Good to see you, Scott. Ralfy is right. Belgium is correct. Filliers or Fillier is indeed now, since 2018, making malt whiskey in Belgium, along with the rest of the distilling world, it would seem. Question 9. Which of these distilleries is associated with drying barley with sheep dung? Who's up about that? Which distillery dries barley with sheep dung? Is it A, Eimwerk? Again, forgive the pronunciation here. B, Onjaba. C, Cardrona. A, Eimwerk, B, Onjaba, or C, Cardrona. One of these distilleries, I guess it's a fuel source to them, use dried sheep dung to smoke and dry their barley. A lot of you might be looking for something that's not there. You need to work with it. This is the second from last tonight. Scott,
I'm looking for the most New Zealand sounding name. Or Tasmania. Tasmania or New Zealand. There is a distiller there who actually uses a tumble dryer to kiln his barley using sheep dung. But sheep dung is not as aromatic as camel dung.
Camel dung. Well, I don't know about... I've tried elephant dung whiskey. I've tried sheep dung whiskey. I've yet to try camel dung whiskey. I can tell you that B, Onjaba, is elephant dung whiskey from Namibia. Roddy and I tried that on the vPub last year. You might remember. It was great fun. It was the year before that. New Zealand is Cardrona, but as far as I'm aware, they're not using tumble dryers or sheep dung. Eimwerk is A. What did you suggest, Ralfy?
I said C.
Oh, you went for New Zealand, right enough. Eimwerk is actually where they make floki in Iceland, and they are using sheep dung. Not exclusively, they're also using peat, and they're also doing just naturally warm air dried barley too. But Eimwerk make floki whiskey. So there we go. Let's see as we approach the asshat question at the end. Who's on 9 out of 9? Sugar Kitty, Steve Atkis, both on 9 out of 9, along with Gabriel Wilding. My goodness.
Well, they're doing better than me, Roy. I'm 8 out of 9.
Well, there's a lot of people alongside you. Malt Minion Chuck is on 8. Whiskey and Wine Trails. Dogs of No Uncles. Colin, good to see you. Good to see you, Chuck. Malt Minion, Whiskey and Wine Trails, all on 8 out of 9, along with Molasses, Peter Box, Hell's Wood, Too Slow Rob, George O'Brien, Thomas Elmer, Ian Bruce. Lots and lots of people on 8 out of 9 as well, Ralfy. Whiskey with Molly Ben is bring up that distillery photo again and then compare it to the photo in the Malt Whiskey Yearbook for Bal Blair. It's not Dillion, it's Bal Blair. We have some controversy. Let's have a wee look, because that's, if this happens in the quiz, you're allowed to take the points to the bank.
That chimney, by the way, Bal Blair has that chimney.
Oh yeah, well, Bal Blair is a red chimney distillery.
Yes,
absolutely. Dillion, could Ben, Whiskey with Molly, have claimed himself a point? Could there be a lot more people on? Dillion is not a red chimney distillery, I don't think. So there
Really?
and it doesn't have that same hill drop and hillside behind it. So the credit that I've used there, I thought, oh, that's a pretty picture from a World Whisky Tours. They've made a wee mistake. I think that could be Balblair. Ben, you can take the points, and anyone else that got a wrong on that, whether they answered the right one or not, can just take the points to the bank. Well done, Ben, and I'm glad I caught that one too.
I'm going to remove my point, Roy, because I was wrong. And the thing is, if you watch the film Angel Share,
that's right.
You see, this is where you clearly see the distillery, the shape of the distillery, but that picture is from the other side than the one they show in the film. They've taken it from the other side of the building, and yeah, I'm going to take another point off myself, Roy. It's only fair.
No, I don't think you should, Ralph, because what happens if there's controversy? For example, Doc McAllen Fine and Rare is chiming in to say, no, actually it is Diluent, because it is a lot of these things, as you quite rightly point out, is about the different angle that it comes in from. These are small beers. We don't sweat over these things in the pub at the end. If there's controversy about a question, everybody gets a point. It's been the rule from day one. Everybody takes it. Everybody takes it.
Well, I'm taking a point off anyway, just for spite.
Graham Fraser is here. I was looking for Graham Fraser's name, and he's saying, Roy, you need to stick with my distillery photos. Graham, I think I've run out of yours. You need to send me a few more. Anyway, here we go. There is an ass hat, but it's not that bad an ass hat tonight. They're going to get worse before the year's out, believe me. It's always a horrible question for the last one. Let's see if you can make it through this. Of all the nominated bottles, for the 2021 OSWAs were available, if they were all available and you were able to buy one of each at the guide price, how much would you have to spend?
Oh, no.
Now, I've dialed this down because what I did is I said, would you have to buy a Macallan Black Easter Elches? Would you have to? But I didn't. I just changed it to make it a wee bit easier since it's the first vPub back. How much would you have had to spend to buy one bottle of each of all the nominations for the 2021 Online Scotch Whisky Awards? About £1,800 for A, about £2,400 for B, or about £2,800 for C. How much money would you have to spend?
That's quite a lot of money, Roy, isn't it?
It doesn't matter what way you cut it. It's a lot of money. That's just the way whiskey is, Ralfy. It's not a cheap thing. People are guessing. It's all over the place. Ralfie, I need your guess. What are you going to go with?
A.
1,800 quid to get all of the whiskies. There were 30 different nominations in the 2021.
What,
30
the nominations.
Bottles.
Sorry, I thought, think about, no. Right, I'm taking that back again. I'm changing. Can I change my mind?
I would recommend that you do not. It is £1,804 if it was the guide price. If they were all available and you paid the guide price, you would be paying £1,804. Sorry about the ass hat at the end, but I think it was a soft ass hat, I have to say. Mike Molasses is laughing out loud. Dogs Have No Uncles managed an 8. Peter Box 888. I'm looking for the 10s. Anybody got it? Yuri looks like he's celebrating. He's saying yes, maybe he got it. Not too shabby. Says Eric R. That looks like a new name, Eric. Good pass mark. Good for you. Zach Andrews on 7. Whiskey Tutor on 9 out of 10. Whiskey Tutor? Wonder if that's John Lamond. Is that you, John? 9 out of 10. Fantastic score. Graham Fraser is celebrating 10 out of 10. Fantastic. Along confidence, says Yuri, with the classification OSWAs, it's very good that you gents clarified it for everyone to vote. Thank you very much, Yuri. Port Ellen Stills. Jerry Miller is saying, damn you, Port Ellen Stills. He only managed a 9 out of 10. So we've got Graham Fraser is the only... Oh, there we go. Gabriel Welding. Yes, my first 10 out of 10 celebrating. Steve Atkins saying, oh my God, I just got 10 out of 10. BMO got 10 out of 10 as well. There's lots of 10 out of 10s tonight. That's exactly what I hoped for. At least some of us being able to enjoy a full house for the first vPub back. There we go, Ralphie. No bad. And how did you get on yourself? I think you got a 9 out of 10, didn't you? You only slipped up once.
No. I'm taking off for the Balblair. I should have spotted Balblair with that chimney. You see, the chimney's beside
the jury is still out. There remains some research to be done, but it's fine. It doesn't
8
matter
out
whether
of
it's
10.
Balblair, Dillion, or indeed some other distillery. There's controversy around the question, so everybody gets to take a point. And it's up to you how you want to interpret it. It's absolutely fine. Doc is now coming back saying Macallan Fine and Rare say no, it was in fact Balblair. Sorry, it's confusing. So it looks like that we do have Balblair. So your 8 out of 10 is spot on. Ralfy, we've got a wee bit of work to do in the next couple of months, haven't we?
We do.
Are we happy to do it?
Absolutely. Because it's meaningful. It's not just some vanity project. It's not just some filler for content. This involves the community. This is quite simply the mechanism of the OSWAs, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards.co.uk, OSWA.co.uk, is the most direct award system connecting customers, active customers, interested customers with the Scotch whisky industry. And I do feel, Roy, that there is a feeling amongst customers that there is this barrier placed by people within the industry in that I know you feel you're a customer, I know you feel you're knowledgeable, I know you get 8 or 10 out of 10 on a quiz at the vPub, but know your place. Your place is a consumer. So shut up, pay the price, and buy into the marketing. And that's not the way it works with us, Roy. No way.
I don't think it has to be like that. When we've spent a lot of time, a lot of moments with whiskey, a lot of sharing, a lot of understanding, it's become more than just a drink for us. It's become something that we really look forward to, we really covet, we really enjoy, and we spend a lot of time learning about it, and we spend a lot of time sharing it, Ralfy. We both of us share whiskey, and we love to share whiskey. Yeah. And I think that when that happens and we start to understand more of it, we want to naturally lead other people to understand more about it as well.
Because when we engage with whiskey, when we connect with whiskey, it enhances our quality of life because it is a quality thing. And when we refer to the smell and taste of whiskey and learn about it and invest in it, it helps to amplify our other senses, because we drink whiskey with music. We drink whiskey with looking at art, for example. We have greater practice in using our senses, and this is our primary senses which help to define our quality of life.
And here's to being able to afford that going forward. Sugar Kitty has dropped in a link to the OSWA website. Thank you so much, Sugar Kitty. Papa Q, I think that's Rob, isn't it, Rob? Loving my bottle of Aqvavitae Loch Lomond 10. Wish I had purchased a second bottle. I know, Papa Q, it was difficult. There wasn't a lot of bottles out there. I'm really glad you're enjoying it. Save a wee bit for just as long as you can. I get through mine too. Thomas Elmer is saying, I just can't leave it alone. All the peat lovers out there, sheep dung is just new peat. It's just, but it's not even new peat. The sheep dung's been getting used for probably just as long as peat's been used for. Absolutely, Tom. And Helen is saying, grand to have you back behind the bar. Good to see Ralfy too. See you next week. Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Good time, says Rob. Too slow. Superb. Ralfy, I'm going to ask you to sit. Please don't leave. Let the credits roll, and let us come in and tidy up a couple of things, and me just to raise a wee glass for you before you disappear off to look after Billy, Fluffy, and your cans of Guinness in the stream. So if you can. But listen, I'll raise this glass to you and say thanks for staying up late in the bothy. And I know that we're both ready for this.
And by the way, Roy, the third bottle of non-age statement whiskey was Lafroig Lower.
Oh, nice one. Nice one. Yeah. Well, my third, I showed you what it was, the Tomatin Decades too.
Good choice.
So there you go. Lots of really nice comments coming in. Mikey, hey, what a way to come back after the summer break. He's saying, thank you, Mikey. Ben is saying, well done, Barflies. McIntyre's Malts, 159 subs. And Drams on deck at 1.07 subs. Fantastic, guys. Thanks very much for your support. I hope you do go on to not just sub and just give them a wee look. Listen, if it's not for you, they won't be offended if you don't hang around. But at least you've subbed so you can have a wee look and you can leave a wee comment of encouragement and things. it takes a lot to do what creators do, believe me. There's so many in here. Jeff Whiskey's in here. The Whiskey Diary, Ben's in here as well. I noticed him commenting just a second ago. He was talking about it being another 10 out of 10 night, but he wasn't talking about the quiz. He was just saying that he enjoyed himself. So listen, all these creators do put a lot of effort into making the best content that they can. And with your support and help, we all grow over time. Thomas saying, Barfly, Sancho, Ralfy going with Compass Box No Name number 3. Good, I hope you enjoy it, Tom, as well. Danny Hebbington saying, Thursday nights are back, baby. Cheers, Ryan Ralfy. Thank you, Danny. And No Rolex is saying, thanks, Aqvavitae and Ralfy. Thanks to you, my friend. Ralfy, until, well, I guess the next time that we'll be back is to nominate, and it won't be a vPub, it'll be a Saturday, a separate thing, when we nominate the nominations for 2022 in about, when is that going to be? It's about 4 or 5 weeks' time, right? 24th of September it'll be. There we go.
Let me know, Roy. Let me know. I'll be there.
We'll keep each other right. I'll see you in a month, Ralfy. Thanks very much for hanging out. Slanty to you. Cheers.
And thanks, mock mates, because you're part of this.
They absolutely are. Thank you, buddy. Don't go away. Terrific stuff. It's always nice when we encourage Ralfy out the bothy, don't you think? I enjoy it, and I hope you did too. I'm really excited for the OSWAs in 2022. There's lots to be shared. So the next point of interest for you is the public vote will be launched publicly on the 24th of September, but you'll hear about it because it'll be a Saturday and Ralfy and I will come out and we'll tell everybody what the nominations are. And then about 6 weeks or so after that, I think it is on the 5th of November, more or less, it's actually the 5th of November will be the award ceremony, and that will give us time to collate all the public votes that's going to be running for 3.5 weeks, and then 2 weeks for us to get it all together and get the red envelopes out and get the certificates out and things like that. I'm excited for it. I hope you are too. Most of the information is on the website. The website will be updated on a rolling basis as there's more to share. oswa.co.uk, as we've been talking about. Next week will just be me here. It's going to be a lot quieter, a lot tamer than it was tonight. Just be me on a regular kind of vPub theme. I'm looking forward to getting a bit of settled time and hanging out with you then. Until then, I'm going to raise this delicious glass of Tomatin Decades, a non-age statement whiskey, and it's been nice to hear that Ralfy's enjoying non-age statement whiskies, and from 2023 he's going to be reviewing them again as well. A wee bit of a semi-exclusive scoop there. But I'll raise this glass and say thank you for hanging out with us tonight. There's been so many of you, and it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful for you to support Wade and Bo and the Liquid Antiquarian as well on their new the Malt Distilleries book launch. That's coming out on the 30th of August. So make sure you don't miss that too. I'll raise this glass and say thank you, Barflies. Thank you, dedicated whiskey folk. I look forward to hanging out with you a week from tonight. You're all very dearly loved. Slanchiva. Good night.